Hello and welcome everybody, welcome to the stream. We're going to be finishing up our golden retriever puppy sculpt here today, and then tonight on the Pixelogic ZBrush stream we're going to be working on going through the process of blocking out an appealing character, just doing the whole blockout process, talking about some kind of fundamentals. And yeah, just kind of going through that whole thing. Depending on how long it takes us to finish this, we could hopefully get into some of that today. I don't think there's a ton more that I want to do on this. Mainly it's kind of just that last kind of 10%-y stuff that, you know, you can noodle around with for forever. So we're going to be doing some of that today, and feel free to pop in, ask any questions, just hang out. Say hello if you can hear me. Let me know that my audio is working all right. And we can go ahead and get started here. Make sure that we got everything set up. I'm pretty sure we're good to go. Alright, cool. So if you've been following along with the sculpt here on the pup, this is my sister's dog, one of my sister's dogs. That I have kind of cartoonified here, made a little bit more into that Disney-esque style. I've been playing around with this hat here since our last stream, just trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work. I'd like to make this an ornament if I can, and try to get some ribbon to wrap around the Santa hat. My main concerns are just making sure that it's, you know, balanced properly so that it's not going to sway to one side in an extreme manner. I'm thinking though that I've set up the hat, I've kind of leaned it to one side and then curled it back on itself. So what that's allowing is for this plumb line to run almost perfectly through the center. It will be a little bit off balance there. Not enough, I think, to cause an extreme like tilt or anything any one direction. If anything, the weight, having more weight on this side, will have it rotate back the other way. So I think it'll be pretty balanced. And like I said, just some cleanup, some main stuff here, and we'll just kind of go through that. I just inserted this hat on our doggo here during the end of our last stream. Just inserted some primitives, used the Z modeler brush to do some quick poly modeling, and then started trying to come up with a clever way to so that we could like turn this into an ornament essentially. So we could hang it. Originally I was thinking I would just put a hole through a part of the head or something. I was like, that'll look really dumb, and probably not the nicest thing I could do to this cute little pup. And then I was thinking that I would put a hole through the like poof ball on the end of the Santa hat. I was like, you know what, maybe we can just be a little bit more clever here and try to make it all one solid piece and just have it hang from the actual Santa hat. I will be looking to make sure, one thing I haven't checked really on this yet is thickness up here. It is thick enough to where it would meet the minimum unsupported thickness, which is about 0.12 inches or 3 millimeters, right around there. I will maybe make it a little bit thicker just to make sure that we're safe. I'd rather, you know, if this is the point that it's hanging its entire weight by, I'd want that to be pretty strong, or as strong as I can get it, with it not getting, you know, too crazy thick. Just a little bit more, I think will be cool. And then the rest of what I'm doing here is just going to be clean up, not really too much here. I'm hoping that we can get into those blockouts, those base meshes, whatever you want to call them, here soon, because I think those will be a lot more interesting, a lot more fun, and start something new. Starting something new is always fun. That's why everybody has so many unfinished projects. And, well, yeah, you just got folders and folders of things that you've started, and the amount of uncompleted projects compared to completed projects is a little bit unbalanced. At least it is for me. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I start something new, anymore I try on my personal projects, stuff like this, and what was one of our most recent ones here? the like the dragon bust and the deer for the Great Prince of the Forest. I try to have specific kind of small goals in mind for each little project I do. Like for this, I hadn't done anything kind of like creature related in a while, so I wanted to try something a little bit different than what I've been doing for the past few months. So we switched it up and then went back to this, tried to create something really clean, match that kind of Disney style, Disney appeal. So that was a lot of fun. Both of those were really fun. And before that, doing some style studies, but the reason I'm showing you all those is because, just having those small goals with every little project, I think help get you into a mindset where you want to finish your projects a little bit more instead of kind of just aimlessly going forward. I'll finish this or I won't. It's not that big of a deal. But when you have that goal in mind, it makes it a little bit easier to pull that through to the finish line. At least it does for me. But finishing your projects is it's so important. It really is. I could talk about this stuff all day, but Juan Franco is here in chat, so welcome, Juan. How are you doing? Welcome back. I'll also mention tonight I'll be streaming on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern US. So if you're around, pop in and say hey. We're definitely going to be, if we don't get to working on some of that character blockout stuff today during this stream, I will for sure be doing it tonight on the Pixelogic channel. So we will be doing something new, something fun, and I'm excited. Those are always a lot of fun to work on. I'm doing great, thank you for asking. What is going on with you today, Juan Franco? Are you working on any cool projects? And everybody else in chat, anybody working on anything new and interesting today? Or it doesn't have to be new, I guess. If you guys are working on anything that you'd like to share in chat, feel free. I'd love to check it out. We got some cool projects that people were working on yesterday. Trying to really clean up this silhouette and make these breaks in the silhouette here happen along the same basic plane, so that we're not losing the shape here too much. It's feeling a little bit better. Let's see, let's try backface masking here. And try to pull that up. So we got this leaning to the side. Get the weight over here a little bit. Get the center pivot point right around here for that to wrap around. I think that's feeling a lot better. I also want to work on this point here, this mesh, just how it's connecting around the head. Let's see. Still working on the piece that you sent me on the last Saturday critique. How's that coming along? Oh, and by the way, for those that don't know, on Saturdays we do live critiques here on the Twitch stream. So if you guys are interested in getting some of your work critiqued, you can just shoot me an email at follygon@gmail.com. Send me a Z-tool. Here you go. I think I still have this. I think I still have that set up. Yes. So there are the instructions for how you can send me some stuff in for critique, and that's in chat. You can check that out and send them my way. It's been a lot of fun. We had a lot of stuff to critique last Saturday. We went through a variety of different styles and different levels of finish and different levels of experience. People have been saying that they feel like, they need to work on something a little bit longer before they send it in. So, don't, if you want to do that, that's totally fine. But I would also say, don't beat yourself up or anything. Just, send it in. It's not like we're going to make fun of you or anything. I am here to help as much as I can. It's the whole reason we're doing the live critiques. Trying to turn this edge a little bit more in here, just so I can change that angle. Get that flowing up a little bit more. Obviously a little bit too much up here, but that's okay. It's easy to fix. And I want to... Here, I'm going to delete a few of these. Bevel, edge loop. Beautiful. Beautiful. Alright, and then to fix that, I'm just going to use probably move back face masking. Let's see. Pull that back a little. Just fill in this gap here. It is improving. Awesome. I'd love to see it when it's finished. Juan, remind me which one was yours, by the way. Was it the... It wasn't the hyena, was it? For some reason I'm thinking that yours was the hyena. Just trying to get this to interact a little bit better around here. Give it a little bit of thickness. This is going to be so thin when it's printed, it probably won't even, this edge, this gap here won't even register. So that's why I'm trying to make it maybe a little bit exaggerated, just to give it a little bit of extra form there. Oh, that's right, it's Maggie. It was really coming along. I think you said that you'd been working on that for a few months already. And you got some other projects that you're working on as well. That'll be really cool when it's finished. It was looking good. Send some renders when it's done? Awesome, yeah, I'd love to check it out. I'm sure we'll see it on the front page of ArtStation, so you might not even need to send it my way. Alright, so just working on lining that up a little bit better. And then the other thing that I really, really want to do is look at the fur. Hopefully. Now what is... Now, like I was kind of talking about before, I was saying that I at least try to have some kind of small goal. I don't know if you're just making that for a portfolio piece, if you're rigging and animating what all you're going through for the entire process. But that's fun. My next character is going to be, or you know what, maybe I shouldn't say yet. I have decided on, so I've been talking a lot about a new course that I've started working on. And it's going to be a lot different than the stuff I've been doing in the past, where it's all pre-recorded. It's going to be more of an actual class, something that lasts for probably about 6 to 8 weeks is what I'm thinking right now. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Probably more so on the latter, more around 8 weeks, just because there's so much content to go through. But an actual class, so you know, some pre-recorded stuff, but also a lot of live feedback sessions, project-based homework, feedback on that homework, live Q&A, that kind of thing. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I have contacted some artists and been able to figure out some more stuff. So it's coming along. I'll have some more information hopefully here soon. I don't think I'm going to be having this class ready before the end of the year, and even if I did, it's probably a bad time to try, you know, to get people to sign up for a class around Christmas. You know, at least I think it would be probably. I'm going to be busy. I know other people will be busy traveling and everything else, so I think it's, you know, even if I did have it finished, which I won't, it'd probably be not a great idea. Sign up for this 8-week class on Christmas. Go ahead. Or who knows, maybe it'd be a good Christmas gift. Juan Franco says that their goal is to make pieces, game models, and also stuff for 3D printing. Awesome. Yeah, so what's great about, you know, setting everything up for, like, if you're going to set up a rig or anything, you can set up multiple poses for your character and do all sorts of setup for, like, watertight printing processes after that, after you pose everything. Pop it back into ZBrush after it's posed up, get that high res, get everything going from there. Well, I mean, you know, typically when I do stuff for printing, it's, you know, start in the neutral, go to posed, and then you're done. It's like, it's this one pose, and if you want to sculpt it in another pose, you're going to have to re-sculpt so much. But when you have that rig, you know, you just have a lot more freedom. Not that, I don't know, it seems kind of backwards, like there wouldn't be a lot of applications for 3D printing something in multiple different poses or setting something up for production in multiple poses. But I guess if you had this huge IP, I could see a situation in which, like, Star Wars or Pokemon, some huge IP would have, you know, all their characters set up with rigs and everything else, like really nice rigs, and then you could just pose your character, send it off to ZBrush, and then get it sculpted up to the high resolution if you need to sculpt anything additional for that. Make it watertight, print ready, and then you can produce multiple toys or, you know, multiple of the same character in different poses, all for that, all based off of that one base mesh with the rig setup. I think that'd be pretty cool. I don't know if that's really your intention, since you're kind of going through the whole game model process as well as 3D printing. I don't know if you're keeping those exclusive from one another. Be interesting to kind of play around with that, though. I don't know a lot of people that do that. I mean, I don't know anywhere that does that. I said it would be interesting, but it would be like kind of counterproductive to the whole production design stuff, just because, at least for, you know what, maybe not, I don't know. Hey, our alerts are working again. Adelbaran 3D, thank you so much for the follow and welcome to the stream. Juan Franco has a little bit of experience rigging, but that's great advice. I like the games and collectible industry, as do I. I only work in physical production, though, for the most part. I've done some stuff on games, but not professionally. All my professional experience is on physical production. Alright, so a little bit of cleanup to the hat. There's still some other stuff going on here that's a little janky. You're giving it a shot with both, trying to learn both. Well, good luck to you. It's quite a lot to do at once, for sure. I'm going to clean this up since this is getting so pinched up there. Make sure I have my material set up. Fix that. I didn't want this to be pinched really tight. I just started to do that so that I could get the surface to start going in that direction. Start to get the hit more so in that area. And then I could go back through and kind of smooth this out. Maybe take like a trim dynamic or something like that in here and slightly transition this. It's a little tough to see just because the poly paint and material are not super productive for seeing three-dimensional form. This material is quite a bit better. Let's do a quick remesh on that. This will just get rid of any, hopefully any awkwardness that we're seeing in our silhouette, any kind of extra little bumps on our surface, anything like that. The plan is here to remesh at around 1K. It should retain most of the form, and then I should not need to project any of that. So instead of going through and cleaning up all this surface noise, any of that, even though it's really small and probably won't come through on the print, might as well just like get that out, make sure that it's all looking nice and clean. That quick remesh cleans up that silhouette and everything else there. And then all we have to do is reapply our color, which I have lost in that process. There we go. Fill that back in, and maybe some like small adjustments from here. I don't know. I really don't think there's a ton more left on this that I want to do other than, a little cleanup around the collar here with the fur, and making sure that we're not getting anywhere that's too thin. So normally what I would do once I'm getting to a stage where I'm feeling like not too much more is going to change, I would go through the process of merging all of this together. I would have to make sure that I have actual subdivided geo for all of these though. I would go through the process of just, whoops, oh, that did work, even with solo mode on, good. So I'd just go through the process of merging this all together. I would probably even do this in black and white, no poly paint. Just get a quick test. I say black and white, but no poly paint is what I mean. After merging all this together and exporting it, I would upload it to Shapeways and just get a basic idea of how well this is going to print. Shapeways will give you, or any of those online 3D modeling resources will give you an idea of where you're going to have problems with thicknesses and everything else. So probably around here, like these little areas, I would want to thicken up. Probably get rid of any of these like awkward little gaps here, and probably draft a lot of these, get rid of all that, get rid of this stuff. Just make sure that none of this is too far off the surface where it's going to cause some printing issues. Some of this stuff, you can cheat a little bit and just draft it back to get enough thickness in there. So some of it's not too bad. Some of it is very bad though. But I'm not keeping any of that. I'm just kind of giving you an example there. The only other areas that I'm a little worried about here are the ears, because it gets a little thin in some of these places. Let's see. If we look at the negative here, it gets a little thin in some of these areas. Hopefully it's not too terrible. We will find out once we upload that. But I think it'll probably take like 3 hours to 2 or 3 hours maybe to process something like this. Just to go through all the checks. Normally, maybe like an hour, I don't know. It just kind of depends on how busy they are. If it's kind of like December, Christmas season, so I'm guessing it's going to take a little longer. But maybe we can go through the process of uploading that, and then we can check on it in a little bit. So for something like this, let's see. I wasn't planning on doing it, but I don't know, we might as well, right? Just so you guys can see an idea of what this would look like. So you want to make sure that your scale is set up as well. I think I've done this on stream before on the Pixelogic channel. I don't think I've ever done it here on my stream. Let's do a quick 500 or so Dynamesh res. To upload something to Shapeways specifically, I think, what is it? It's 64 megabytes. It has to be under 64 megabytes or under 1,000,000 polys. So that's definitely possible with what we've achieved here. There are some tricks that we can do to decrease the file size if it's too large. It shouldn't be too large for this. So when I'm doing this, typically I'll just Dynamesh this all together because it's all just for a test. And then I will Control W, make sure it's all one poly group. I will very quickly make sure, you know, it's watertight and we don't have any awkward floaters or anything like that. It doesn't look like we do. There are maybe some holes, but really that's more indicative of problem areas that we will just need to fix. So let's export this as a let's see, I'm gonna just export this as an OBJ, and I'll just call this test, and then we can upload that for checks. Let's see. Do you own a 3D printer? I do not, but I have extensive professional experience working hands-on with FDM, SLA, and SLS printers. The biggest FDM printer that I've ever worked with was a meter cubed printer. It's called the 3D platform. Here. Maybe, no, not platformer. These printers are ginormous. Oh, okay, cool. Great, all right. Here, hold on. Let's go to Shapeways really quick and upload this, and then we can look at that printer. So upload, let's see. They changed the way this works a little bit, so I just want to make sure this is in inches. I've already set up my my little puppy dog head. This is about 2 inches tall, 2.5 inches tall. In the largest direction, the hat is making it a little bit taller. So something like this will probably, because it's not hollowed out, this is just, remember, this is just to test thicknesses and problem areas, not to figure out price or anything like that. So choose a 3D file. Whoa. Where'd it go? Test object. So that'll upload, and then, yeah, this is a lot different than it used to be. That's all right. So I'm just gonna let that upload, I guess. Let's go back really quick and try to find that 3D platform that I was talking about. And try not to get the 3D platformer. I wonder if they went out of business, because this is their website. And I wonder if they went out of business and somebody bought the URL and made it like an ad site or whatever. No. Did I click on something different before? I'm pretty sure that's the link I clicked. Like, somebody go back and watch that. What the heck? That was very weird. But anyway, you know, almost a meter here, meter cubed. The one that I got to play around with was a meter cubed. Just absolutely ginormous FDM machines. Very expensive, as you can clearly see. Obviously, I could never afford something like this. Not anytime soon. But they are very cool in terms of FDM. Resolution-wise, they're not, you know, anything crazy. If you want something with a lot better resolution, you should probably get something a lot smaller. But yeah, the reason that I was working with such a large machine was because at the time I was doing a lot of stuff for life-size figures for amusement parks and museums, and originally a lot of the process was you set up a file for milling, and for milling out of foam. So you'd have this giant 6-axis mill arm, a giant drill, and a giant block of foam, and then there's like different densities of foam that you could get, like white, yellow, green being the most dense, if I remember correctly. Then you'd give them the 3D file. This was all done in-house at where at Life Formations, where I used to work, and the KUKA operator, KUKA was the brand of mill, they would set up the drill arm, it'd go through the whole process, you know, run for 10, 20 hours for one piece, and then after that, they'd have to clean up the foam and, you know, re-sculpt a lot of stuff. And then they'd take the foam piece and then set up a mold for that to create the negative cavity that they could run whatever material that they were going to create for that life-size character. So it was a very involved process. It was a lot of fun getting to work on that. But the reason I got to work with the 3D platform was because the mill arm was slow. Took a lot of man hours to rework a lot of that foam, so they thought that they could cut out a lot of the middleman stuff and just have us on the digital team set up stuff for working with the printers, get everything ready to go on the printers, slice up our models, and print these giant pieces that would later be keyed and pinned up together, set up for molding, and then go from there. But yeah, they were a lot of fun to work on. I've worked with a lot of FDM machines. I've worked with some SLA stuff as well. Just lots of different experiences with 3D printing. But let's check on our upload here. It looks like it's done uploading, which is awesome. But like I said, it takes a while to calculate the stuff, so I'll have to check back on this in a while. Let's make sure that that is correct. So the measurements are correct there. That's what I was seeing in ZBrush. And then, yeah, I'll just give that a while to figure out what's going to happen. And you can see that where's our sandstone? This is probably what we're going to be doing. It looked like it was around $35-ish there. Can I go back? Yes. So for the full color sandstone, it'll probably be, maybe a little bit more. I don't really know. But pretty expensive for such a small little print. Once we hollow it out, it will be a lot cheaper, though. So once that's done calculating, it'll essentially go through and give you a version that will have these areas that are, fill object. It'll go through and calculate your model, and then it will heat map your stuff and say, hey, check these areas, they look a little thin, we probably can't print this unless you thicken up some of this stuff. So we'll take a look at that once that's finished, though. Make sure I didn't miss anything here. The hackers are coming. What's going on, Engine, J Murphy, and Angry Monday? How you guys doing? As well as everybody else that's popping in to say hello. How are you guys doing? Hope you're having a great day. You'd like to buy the Anycubic Photon? I'm not familiar with the Anycubic brand. Is this, it looks, this is SLA, it looks like, yeah. That's a pretty nice price, but I've already spent, $600 on an SLA printer that I never got, so I'm probably not buying another printer for a while. I just want to, whenever I look at a printer anymore, they try to make it, this is the stuff that I want. They always try to hide this stuff, I feel like. Just give me the actual details. Oh, build volume, I was confused there. 155, so looks nice. I wonder if there's multiple sizes for this. Very cool though. That's an awesome price point for an SLA printer. But every printer is different, and looking at the specs alone is not enough. You have to be able to see, what the prints look like coming off of that. But yeah, guys, so we're uploading the test print for this. I think we're gonna play around with some mannequin stuff, some blockouts. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Let me save this just before I forget, because that'd be bad. So remember, the plan is with this, once this is done checking, we'll probably thicken up a lot of these areas where there are some problem issues. I'm just going to delete the test that I made because I'm not going to need it anymore. And we can move forward unless I see any more questions. So you've seen some reviews for the Anycubic, I guess? I think that you were the one that... Yes, you did mention that. Awesome. Your 3D printing is poor, so you're not sure. I mean, you get what you pay for, so at that price point, it's kind of hard to tell. There's probably a lot of problem solving that you're gonna have to do if you get something like that. But I don't know. I don't know anything about it, so maybe it's the best printer in the world. So, we are going to talk about mannequins and blocking out characters. So, to do that, does anybody have a cool concept of a character? I was gonna pull up one for myself that I had that I could do next. If nobody has a concept, thank you Smedley Potsky for the follow there. Beautiful name, by the way. So if anybody has a stylized character that they would like to see me do a blockout of, please post it in the chat right now, and we can take a look. I have this character here that I will do if you guys don't have anything for me to look at. This is by Luigi Lucarelli, or Hello Luigi, I think is their username on the nets. But yeah, if anybody's got a cool character concept, I would love to do something that you guys maybe want to see instead of doing this old hag. Either way, though, I'm fine with it. So if you don't know what I'm requesting here, it's just a stylized character concept that we can essentially block out, do a base mannequin of, much like what I did with this character. This character was a little bit more off my dome, kind of just trying to do something that was a little bit more top-heavy. Felt like a guy that skipped leg day, you know. A big muscle brute, essentially, was what I was aiming for. And then once we start on our new concept, whatever that will be, I will start talking about all sorts of good things that we will like to keep in mind while we do that. So I'm not seeing any concepts, so we will go ahead and import our old lady here. Let me see if I can find her. There she is. Cool. So I'm going to import this image using Spotlight, just like this. And I'm going to put this in the middle of my screen here. And turn down the opacity a lot. Really low. Just like that. And then we are going to grab a sphere 3D, make Polymesh 3D, set that up, and start working on this. So we are going to be doing a blockout of our old lady here. What's going on, Jitobix? How are you doing? Nice shapes, nice model. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, you know, we're about to start a new one of these here, a new mannequin, new base sculpt for a stylized and appealing character. This time something based off of what Luigi Lucarelli has here. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn off perspective to begin with, and I am going to just align this sphere as good as I can. I'm going to go into Movie, Timeline Show, and now I'm going to start by putting a point on my little timeline up here. So if I move this, resize it, I can just get that back really quick. So let us begin with the blockout. I am going to be using all primitive shapes to do this. Just starting from this front view here, figuring out some of these basic shapes. And feel free while I'm working here, feel free to shout out any questions you guys might have, or you know, anything else, and I'll do my best to answer what I can. Working here, but you'll be following the process. Cool, cool, cool. Alright, so when I start blockouts, typically I just start from a singular view, and it's totally fine, you know. It's just important at this stage that you get in the most basic stuff. You don't worry too much about proportions. It's not the end of the world. You just want to make sure that you're getting the information in. After you're done getting everything in, then you can start worrying about figuring out proportions a little bit more. So we just want, what's going on? My pen stopped working. There we go. We just want to get this stuff in as quick as we can. I'm just duplicating spheres, moving spheres around, getting a basic idea for size and scale. filling things in. You know, maybe widening some of this out. And then after I get a few things in, what I'll do is I'll swap over to, you know, just 3D, start rotating around, making sure that things aren't feeling too flat, too round, making sure that the silhouette's gonna start making more sense. It's gotta feel like this character, not just from the front view, but from all views. So for our basic head shape, kind of a little bit of a football. For our torso, you know, maybe a little bit more flat. We could probably start adjusting this a little bit more, trying to maybe taper that up to the neck area a little bit more too. We will be getting a neck in there. And then for the bottom, this is essentially the dress shape here. So this is going to need, I think, quite a bit more, it's going to need to be quite a bit more cylindrical. Character feels quite flat right now. So it's important that you do this, especially when you only have a single image for reference. Go through and make sure that everything is feeling good from all those different angles. And I'm just going to flatten this on the bottom. I did that very quickly with my trim function on my transpose brush. And let's see here. I'll just continue to pull this out. And just push and pull some stuff around with my move brush. And then, let's see. I also want to get some feet, some arms, hands, and everything else on here. So, for the feet, let's append, or instead, yeah, let's just duplicate this shape, go down to initialize. I'm just going to make a cube, one cute cube. Got our cube here, and this is going to be one of our feet. Let's pull our foot out. And for the feet, I'm going to keep these very simple. Just kind of keep them as cubes right now. Whoops. Do a mirror and weld. And then with a local sim, we'll just start scaling those up. Probably rotate them out a bit. Move them in. Just to have something down there for now. And then let's kind of keep rotating around a little bit and go back to our concept for a moment. Alright, so just kind of taking in a few things here based on what I have. Let's shrink down our torso. Just try to fit the shape there a little bit better. I'm going to play with the shape of the head some. Based on what I'm seeing in the actual image, we're coming back to a little bit more of a flat back here. So to do something like that, I would probably just start, you know, playing around with the shape of the head, maybe using some pinch brushes like what I'm doing now. Just start pushing and pulling some shapes around until I get a little bit closer. Probably flatten that face quite a bit more. Maybe get some more volume around the chin and neck once we start to get that in. It is very important though that you stay as simple as you possibly can at this stage. I would say don't add anything that would what is it? Don't add anything that would not affect the silhouette. So don't add any texture, don't add any internal silhouette lines, anything like that that would not change the external silhouette of your character. So if you're gonna start, you know, figuring out the shapes of the face, don't start doing stuff like this at this stage. Don't start doing any, you know, eye cavities. Don't start doing any, you know, maybe you can put a nose on there if you want, but it's just important that you keep everything as simple as you possibly can. Like with this, there's nothing on the face. All of this is just to say this is the plane of the face. That's all. Keep it as simple as possible. Let's get back here. Let's give this old hag, she's not an old hag, she's a cute old lady. Let's give her a neck. And for the neck, I think I'm just gonna create a cylinder with initial eyes down here, which is a pretty quick way to create primitives. I like it a lot. Let's find our cylinder. There it is. It's hiding. Crease. Gonna be a pretty large neck, I think, based on what I'm seeing here. And yeah, so it's okay if that bleeds down into the body, right? Anything that's not seen doesn't matter too much here. We'll just start working on this shape, how these two shapes are going to blend together. I think maybe we could get a little bit more roundness out of the face, a little bit more depth out of that head shape. So just kind of playing around with pulling that forward a little bit. And yeah, we'll leave that for now, I think. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. I also have to recognize that for the concept image that I'm referencing, her head is turned a little bit to the side, so proportionally I have to make adjustments for that. And also get some water here soon. So when you're blocking out your characters, I highly recommend that essentially, if you're here, if you're on this stage, let's see, let's turn off these. There we go. Try to think of your character that you're blocking out in terms of the most basic point, getting rid of, she doesn't really have legs per se, because I'm just blocking out the shape of the dress, because I really like the round shapes that we're getting here. Try to think about just the main line of your character. It's what's referred to often as the line of action. This looks like it's maybe done, but here we go. Line of action. Maybe there's some good images for reference here, better than what I'm showing. So when you're thinking about the pose of your character, it's often thought of as the line of action. This is a pretty good example of line of action. So flowing up, from the leg up to the head, it's the main pose of your character. But line of action is also something that is apparent in a character that's in a neutral pose as well. If we look at our big muscle boy here and we turn him to the side, the line of action for our character is very much, up through the leg and thrusting forward here. It's very much this strong kind of thrust forward. And if we look at this point from the chest down to the legs, I actually have this straight line running all the way through there. And that's done intentionally. It's helping to make it feel sharp and triangular, right? We have this big triangle shape right here, this huge triangle. And it's making him feel like he's really thrusting forward. And I recommend that you turn off the arms because, well, a lot of these, in the neutral pose at least, you can probably, get the line of action to flow through your arms in a pose. You absolutely can. I'm trying to find an example of one. Here we go. Something like this, maybe. Or if a character is like pointing a gun, the line of action could flow up all the way through the leg and out the arm and out the gun. Just to kind of get that nice flow through the whole character. I don't see too many other examples of that, but that's all right. So that's why I recommend turning off the arms in the neutral there while you're trying to figure out some of this stuff. And I also recommend, kind of like what I'm doing, I'm not even really concerned about the arms right now. I'm more so just trying to figure out the main shapes of the body. Once I get some of that down a little bit more, then we can start, getting into the nitty-gritty a little bit more with the arms. But let's focus on the body a little bit more here. Just continue, really low poly. We're just blocking this stuff out. One thing that I like to do during this stage as well is just do a really low poly ZBrush. Get an even lower polygon piece than the original sphere I started with. Maybe you can Dynamesh really low. Really, it's just totally up to you. I like using the really low ZBrush topology because I can often get something a little bit cleaner to work with. A little bit nicer, a little bit more manageable than Dynamesh. But once you're at this stage, just kind of continue pushing some stuff around, looking at your concept, trying to match stuff as good as you can. And we will add our arms here in just a little bit and continue on with this stuff. There's a lot to consider during this stage. Honestly, this stage is the most important and I think the most difficult part of the character creation process. It's what makes or breaks your character. No amount of cleanup and polishing at this stage is really gonna help you too much. I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure you guys have probably heard the saying, can't polish a turd. It's the same idea here. Not starting with something that's terrible is later on no amount of high resolution details, textures, materials. Nothing you do is really gonna save it from that terrible stage. So we want to spend as much time as we can in this early part. We're really just focusing on making these shapes as good as we can. And I'll get the arms here in a little bit. Let's see. Kind of like pull out a little bit more for her saggy old lady breasts. This is great. This is my favorite thing to sculpt. Keep shaping that up. Maybe get some more volume in here. But the focus here that I really want you guys to see is how low res all this stuff is. This is just a sphere that I've started warping. We can even ZBrush that, make that even lower. Honestly, it'll help us focus here even a little bit more. What happens once you start adding those subdivs is you can get a little caught up in, maybe using some other brushes. That's why I'm pretty much only using the move brush right now. Just that move brush. Just the low res topo. Going through, making this nice and clean. So very important. Let's see here. So looking at the concept a little bit more here, you can maybe start to get those arms in. Start to work on the feet a little bit more too. I'm trying to get this shape in the silhouette. So let's maybe get a little bit more depth through here. To do that, I'm just going to scale in. Try to make that more of a nice concavity there. Let's move our light around. And I'm also going to give a little bit more weight in the back than the front for the badonk, the old lady badonk. Man, this is disturbing. I'm destroying the I don't even know, this cute old lady. I'm the wrong person to be sculpting this. No, we'll make this work. So a little bit more volume maybe in the back. A little bit more weight back here. And let's start blocking out our arms next. I'll also be doing some stuff to make sure that the neck and head are blending a little bit nicer. So let's just duplicate this mesh so that I have something to insert a sphere on. Grab an insert sphere, drop that, delete the extra geometry, and voila, we got a sphere. Amazing, I know. And then from here, let's maybe kind of pull up along the shoulders a little bit. It looks like maybe we could just pull this edge up all together. I'm gonna very quickly try to pull this up even higher back here. A little bit more like that, so that neck is almost disappearing from that angle. And just kind of playing around with my shapes here a little bit. We'll get to the arms now. I've just inserted a couple spheres, and typically what I'll do for something like this is just use my transpose tool and pull out the shape. You can of course use cylinders or whatever else you want to do. I find that with a sphere, I don't know, it just starts already getting some of this nice curve here, so I just kind of like working with spheres a little bit more. But whatever you want to do, I think you can shape up any primitive to what you need. It's just a little bit faster for me to use this. Plus, it's very easy to insert on our surface. So I'm going to start with the basic transitional point coming down from the shoulder. Probably, it looks like the sleeve maybe goes to about her elbow, so I think that'll work well. We'll also probably shape this up a little bit more from the side. Let's see. Based on what I'm seeing in the concept, we could maybe pull in the area around the sides of the body a little bit more. How shall I do this? Maybe just a little transpose trickery here. Actually, instead, to get the weight of her breast in the front, I guess I could just duplicate this. Let's play with this shape a little bit. So just this piece. I'm going to soften this. So this is kind of what this whole process is about in the beginning stages. Just figuring out the simple shapes that you can break something like this into. And if you're having trouble figuring out some of this stuff, I highly recommend doing a draw over in Photoshop or whatever else. Just go through with a pencil, pen tool, whatever you got, and just block out the basic shapes. Try to figure out what you're looking at. And, a lot of the time that can help figure out what's going on in 3D. A lot of the time for me, I'll just kind of line some stuff up like I'm doing right now. And if I get to a point where I'm really struggling, then I'll go through and study the image a little bit more. I think for this though, I think we're gonna be okay. So I'm trying to get a point of translation between the front and back of the body. Creating one mesh here, still having this that I can now probably just shrink in this whole thing. And just make sure I'm getting proper volume through all these places. And starting to feel a lot better from the front. Now we just got to work on that back piece next. Let's check on our doggo here real quick, see how he's doing. So let's grab sandstone, and it's not letting me do my checks. Maybe it's different now. Here, let me see something real quick. They've changed their UI recently, so now it's kind of dim. Oh, here we go. Test. Open in 3D tools. There we go. Wow! I'm very surprised that this passed the wall thickness issues. So let's take a look at what we got. It does look like there are, I don't know why this passed if it's got all this red, but there are some areas around the ears, around a few points here in the fur, in that ear as well. So there are some areas that are giving us some errors around there and the nose. So I will probably do a pass on this and fix up the fur where it's really thin, fix up the ears, the nose, and eyebrows. I'm going to keep this open though so that I can remember to do that later. But we will continue. We will continue on our blockout for our old lady. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Hip Hop, what's going on? Welcome, welcome. We uploaded a test for our doggo for printing, and now we're doing a blockout for a new character. I'm not going to be taking this character past the blockout stage. What I want us to focus on is, you know, how important this stage is, and making sure that we're getting something nice and clean and appealing. And once we start getting some more of the shapes in, we'll talk more about how we can achieve that. But if you guys are wanting to follow along and get, or if you guys are wanting to get better at creating some stylized and appealing characters, I highly recommend that you do a blockout, much like what I'm doing right now. Find a character online that you would like to create, maybe, or at least study a little bit, and try to do a blockout much like what I'm doing right now. So I'm trying to transition these a little bit better here. So just round out this translational area. Oh. There we go. And then our arms can attach, kind of interlock in here a little bit. And this character, like I said, they have some twist going on, obviously in the body and in the face, but they're also posed a little bit. It's asymmetric, so I have to kind of pick and choose. I'm not lining up, you know, pixel for pixel here, but I'm trying to use what I can to aid me as much as we can get here. And let's see. So for our lower arm, we'll kind of just continue flowing that shape. I'll just add another sphere. Pull that out. And we will mirror that over the other side in a little bit, but one thing I want you guys to look at here in our concept, it's maybe not as apparent in this one as it would be in some others, but there are some very important fundamentals going on here for character design, stuff that we can translate to 3D, hopefully. If we're looking at the arm here, we're seeing some very interesting shapes going on as we're flowing down from the arm all the way down to the wrist. And we're seeing this nice flow coming from the outer edge that's more of a straight. And on the inside edge we have, if we were to draw this line through here, we have a little bit more of a curve. So on one side we have a little bit more of a curve, and on the other we have kind of a straight flowing up all the way through here. This is one of those fundamentals called, you know, straights versus curves, or, you know, interesting versus less interesting. It's something that just helps the silhouette of your character read a little bit more and is a little bit more visually appealing, visually interesting. So if I were to, again, use the silhouette here as an example, if we look at this character, you know, flowing up here we have a little bit more of a straight, all the way down the body here, flowing all the way down here. And then here we have a straight that kind of transitions into a nice S curve that just flows all the way through here. So a little bit more of a straight versus curves kind of thing going on there. And all this stuff just kind of works together the more you do it to help lead your eye around the character. It's not a hard and fast rule where it means always have a straight and a curve on the on your character, but I would say it's something that you definitely want to keep in mind. Let's see if I can find a really good example here of something that I like. I can't really see that. Who is, I can't think of a character off the top of my head that would have a really good example. Let's just see, it's often very apparent in characters' legs. I'm not seeing a really good example of something that I like. I probably have some reference images here. Here we go. I got something good here. Alright, so this is an illustration by GopGap. In here there's going to be a ton of examples of this straight versus curves fundamental idea. A lot of the time you can see a lot of stuff like this happening in legs. I think that's just like a really good area to accentuate a lot of this stuff happening. Straights versus curves is going to be one of those fundamentals, but what I would like to do, this isn't a very dynamic pose. This one is a little bit more, but if we're looking at the line of this character in terms of just this character's pose here on the left, Android 17, I think, right? 17 and 18. Looking at this leg, this side of the silhouette, we got this nice curve running up from this shoulder all the way down to the foot. You guys see that really long, nice curve? And then over here on this side, the silhouette reads as a lot more of a straight. So that's kind of the large scale implication of that. There are examples of that, you know, just in little parts of the silhouette, as well if you're just looking at an individual segment of the leg. You know, here on this leg we got a straight coming down with a little bit more curve on the other side. It's just something that you're gonna kind of pick up on the more you look for it. But we're gonna try to achieve that a little bit in just one area here on our character's arm. Android 18 is the female, yes, that's what I thought. 17 on the left, 18 on the right. So we're gonna try making one side of this arm a little bit more straight and the other side a little bit more curvy. And when you do something like this, you have to rotate around in 3D and make sure that the shape is reading from every angle as the same shape. Because what happens is you'll sit here and adjust this for a long time and you're like, okay, got my straight, got my curve, let's rotate around. Oh my god, it's so flat. What did I do? So it's important that you rotate around in 3D. I know it sounds very obvious, but you would be very surprised by how many people, will sit and work from one angle for a very long time, and then, 30 minutes later, oh yeah, gotta rotate around. Oh god, this looks terrible. It's definitely happened to me more than a few times. I am very quickly gonna go grab some water here, and then we will get back to working on our gal here in just a moment. Just want to make sure that I can lower the res on that piece that I dynameshed earlier. Have something more simple. And when I get back, we'll talk about looking at your character from extreme angles, extreme views, and everything else. So I will be back in literally 5 seconds. Not literally. Maybe take a picture. Very soon. For 1005. There. Perfect. 5 seconds. All right. Let's get back into it. So, looking at straights versus curves, trying to figure all that out. It's a process that's, going to take a little bit of back and forth for sure. But another thing that I'm kind of noticing right now is that the character's chest gets pretty flat as I start looking at this extreme angle here. As I start rotating around in 3D space. So it's not only important that you're rotating around your character, but it's also important that you're looking at your character from every possible angle. So, top down, bottom up, making sure that everything is still kind of reading as the same shape, looking good from all these different angles, reading well. I'm noticing that, as I rotate this direction, this really extreme angle here, this starts to feel like it's coming out a little bit too far here. I would like to pull in along this edge. Sneeze my nose off. So just pull back on that. That already feels a million times better to me. And just start working this shape some more. So as I start to get more and more shapes in here, a lot of that stuff will become more apparent as you're starting to work. And, it's important, like I said, to take your time, and it's not a race, as I always say. Let's make sure we're getting this turn happening in the right area. Having some trouble rotating here since my pen is a little messed up. So I'm just being a little dirty here with the surface, keeping it, still pretty low res, but I'm just making sure that this turn is happening in the right area. I'm just changing where this volume occurs. make it feel like it has a little bit more weight to it. And clean that shape up. We'll go back to our image here. Just take a look around, see how things are kind of shaping up. Typically for hands during this stage, I'll treat them very similarly to what I did with the feet, and I will just insert a cube or something similar to represent that shape. We can maybe shape up our feet a little bit more and then insert some hands. Her feet are kind of triangular, so I will very quickly just play around with blocking that out. Remember, you know, you want to stay as simple as you possibly can during this stage. So with that in mind, just some very kind of simple cubes here. And then they're maybe a little bit more rounded. And probably a little bit shorter than what I've done, but that's okay. I'm not even really going to do any legs or anything for this. We could also crease this bottom edge if we wanted to very quickly. Something like that, maybe like a little bit fatter. And a little bit shorter. So just very, very basic shape. That is our goal. The most basic primitive. Got some kind of just bad stuff happening in our silhouette here. If you're having trouble controlling your silhouette, just keep dropping that poly count lower. Try to get something more manageable to work with. The way that I'm going to do that is use the Z modeler brush to manually adjust the topology that I got from ZRemesher. So I will delete a few extra edge loops so that when I smooth this out, it'll be nice and clean. And for the bottom edge, to make sure that this shape stays nice and tight down here, I'll add in a little bevel. And that bevel will still have a little bit of that rounded edge to it, but it will be a lot more soft. I'm just going to push this up a little bit. And take a look at our silhouette here. I have a lot less topology to work with, a lot less actual polygons, and that just makes it more simple to manipulate. Let's make sure we're not losing too much volume here. Here. I think we're gonna adjust. Let's see. Let's do some quick proportional adjustments since we've been playing around with everything. Let's go into T-pose mesh. And then lower the head. And raise up the skirt a tad with the feet at the same time. and lower our arms. Go back to our subtools here. So I'm just squashing things down a little bit, adjusting all those shapes. And we're definitely feeling more squeezed. Let's just work on our volumes from the profile for a little while. Messing around with pushing and pulling things around with my move brush. That's really it. It's like the main tool that I'm using at this stage. Nothing crazy. Just jumping back and forth on the reference, looking around as much as I can. Like I said, this is the hardest part, in my opinion, of the entire character creation process, because you're trying to match that appeal of your character that you're referencing. We're trying to get as close to the basic shapes here that really make up this entire character. You know, if I don't have this, I don't have anything for the character. That's why something as simple as this that doesn't have any additional details can still read really well even in black and white. You know, just with the just looking at the silhouette here, it's still obvious that this is, you know, a big strong dude that we're looking at, even from the profile here. So that's what we're trying to achieve. Really simplistic shapes that bring that 2D appeal into the 3D realm. It's not an easy thing to do. That's why it's very important that we take our time. Especially when we're trying to figure out stuff like the profile that we don't have a reference for. A little bit exploratory in that regard. Now I would probably avoid doing anything with hair or the glasses or ears or any of that stuff at this stage. I might do the ears in the bun on the back of the head just because they affect the silhouette. But we'll probably hold those off until later just because it's so important, I think, to really focus on the bigger shapes that make up this character in the body and the arms and everything else. Just keeping the head simple at this stage so we don't get too focused in on it is a good idea. I'm going to draw a slice through my head and use that to retain some info there when I Z-remesh. So Z-remesh, 1K, keep groups on. That will help it retain that back edge, but it'll also allow me to soften that form. And get rid of all the bad texture lines that I put through there. So a lot more simple shape here. Let's maybe just pull out a little bit more here. And try to round out the bottom of the head. Using a lot of smooth right now, just being careful to not break things too much though, which is very easy to do. Your smooth brush is incredibly destructive. feeling a little bit better to me. And for the neck, I'm probably not going to do anything with this shape here. It looks like almost the neck doesn't really exist. Looks like the head is just kind of stuck on top of this shape and it's all blending together. So I wonder if I just turn that off, are we feeling okay? Is that going to be able to blend well through there? I think the answer is yes. So I'm just going to delete that cylinder that I inserted earlier for the neck. I think it's unnecessary. I don't think it adds anything. Need to set a new point on my timeline for this. And you can remove points on your timeline by clicking and dragging them off, by the way. And there's more stuff here that I'm trying to focus on as well, like making sure between these parts of this blockout, I'm also trying to think a little bit about how these shapes are blending together. So from the front portion of the chest to the back, I want to make sure that, I don't have this huge kind of stair-stepping happening here. Nothing like that. So I'm trying to blend these really well, even though they're separate objects, and we could combine them. I think it's just a little bit nicer to have the freedom of having those split right now. And then once we get a little bit closer to where we're comfortable merging those together, we will. I think these mannequins are awesome for just study, just for fun. I really enjoy doing them. I always learn new things when I work on stuff like this. Plus, it just makes you faster at blocking out more characters for the future. For the hand, I'll just apply a cube or something. What does she have going on here? I'll just try to do a quick basic shape. I recommend not focusing too much on this kind of stuff. Don't focus too much on hands. That's not the objective here. Your objective is to focus on those really big shapes. So if you want to just throw a cube in there for the hand, a cube in there for the foot, I totally think that's fine. If you want to go the extra mile and do a little bit of extra stuff here on the hands and feet, I would say don't take it too much further than what I'm doing for this kind of project, Just keep it simple. And I'm just duplicating these around, I'm not doing anything crazy here. As simple as that. I wouldn't go too much further here. Focusing on that silhouette. All right. So we've done some good stuff so far. There's a lot more work to do though. I think I will very quickly just blend that in to the hand. Something like that. And then I will leave that for now, and we'll come back to that later. Senpai Kazuma, thank you for the follow, and welcome to the stream. How's your day going? We are in the process of blocking out a character and talking about the importance of blocking out your character. All these different things. This is a relatively simple blockout, relatively simple character to block out, so you know, maybe we can stick in something for the hair and everything else, but you know, I don't think we've captured this character's appeal yet. I think our character feels much too flat. I definitely want to get some more of that roundness in there. So let's try to do that next. Let's go back into T-pose, transpose master, and take all of this. I'm just trying to widen that out, get some more of that roundness in there. Let's see. And possibly pinch in here along the sides. Didn't really work the way I wanted. Let's try that again. Just rounding out a little bit. I think that's starting to feel a lot better. Let's grab all of these one more time here. Let's play around with some of these forms. Need to fix that shape. Head back to our subtools here and continue on. So I've talked about I've talked about straights versus curves a little bit. I haven't really talked too much about thick to thin or any of that. There's not too much going on here in terms of thick to thin. There's just a lot of round shapes, so I don't think there's a great example for that in this character, but I will show you guys an example of that in just a moment. It's just another one of those core concepts that you want to keep in mind. One of those fundamentals for translating 2D character design into 3D. So thick to thin or tapered, a tapered shape sounds pretty self-explanatory, but the basic idea is that, you know, in nature, in design, in pretty much everything, you want to, there's not going to be too many parallels, right? There's not going to be a situation in which, and this is an extreme, right, where we're getting some really tapered shapes here, but you want to avoid too many parallels. You're just not going to really experience that too much in nature. I would say avoid parallels unless it adds something to the design of your character. So here, we don't have too many parallel lines. The only thing that I would say that I would probably want to change here is that my shirt is unnecessarily parallel with the ground plane. So I would probably, maybe do some stuff to make that curve there a little bit more interesting. But in all honesty, this connection can be combined and it won't really matter too much. But if we look at, the top portion, top piece of my arm, I have this tapering down from top to bottom, going from large to small. Up here, definitely a lot of tapering going into that middle portion. So small to large, and then large back down to small. Always trying to avoid those parallels. I think in general, you could look at this character and say it's got this huge, V shape, this huge taper happening from the upper body to the lower body, which is what makes him look like that big muscular boy. In here, there's definitely some of that going on in terms of tapered shapes. For the most part, though, it's a pretty rounded character. The points where there are some tapering is maybe just kind of flowing up into the connection between the top portion and lower portion of the body, just how it kind of subducts into there. I'm definitely trying to avoid parallels with the ground plane and making sure that this is, plenty rounded here. Get a nice shape. But we'll continue working here on the body and cleaning this up. I will be doing some more character blockouts tonight on the Pixelogic ZBrush stream. If you guys are interested in hanging out during that process, that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be tonight at 6 p.m. EST over on the Pixelogic channel. Let's see. I also want to avoid her feeling too front heavy, like too forward heavy, like she would tip over. I'm trying to avoid that. Just draw a line up through her, make sure that she's not feeling too off balance. And I'm going to turn off my arms for a moment. I'm going to combine all that stuff in the hand. And I just want to work on this interaction a little bit more. Trying to exaggerate this translation even more. And then once I'm happy with that, I will combine those shapes together. Looking at the silhouette here, this line here, it's very rounded, right? We get a nice flowing rounded curve there that flows from the external silhouette into the internal shape. Ours feels a lot more like there's too much of a hit up towards this point. So I very much so want to help and try and round that back out. All of this. I was trying to do a little bit of this earlier. Wasn't working the way I wanted though. So we're definitely rounding that out more. Starting to lose some of that shape there between the connection point. And if you're new to ZBrush, if you're new to digital sculpting or working on stylized characters, a lot of what I'm doing seems kind of noodly, kind of tedious, maybe even a little bit obsessive, but like I said, this is the most important part of the character. You might get to this stage where you're like, okay, now I'm done with the blockout and I can move forward from here. But I would really urge you to really try to stay in this stage for a lot longer. You know, you can spend an hour in the blockout, but if you spend, you know, 5 hours in that blockout, the rest of your character is really going to benefit from that. And I think it shows in a lot of people's work that, you know, are a little bit more experienced, that have been doing stylized characters for a long time. You can ask any of them, you know, like, what's the most important stage of developing your characters? And I'm pretty sure all of them would say, you know, just those basic shapes, the beginning early stages are so very important to everything else. I'm trying to hit that home for you guys here a little bit by showing how much work we can actually do here to improve a lot of these shapes. Engine says that I don't use blockout modeling before, but I think it's useful. I will use it next time. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by you don't block out your characters. You know, I don't... Blockout doesn't specifically... I'm sure you do some form of initial shaping, right? You probably just mean that you don't do a lot of individual shapes like what I'm doing here, which is just, you know, the way that I'm doing it right now. That doesn't mean that you can't have all of these, you know, as a single mesh, all dynamesh together like this, and you just, you know, sculpt it individually however you want. You know, this still works just as well. You know, if you push and pull shapes around, it's still blocking out. You're still doing those initial shapes, right? But instead you've pushed and pulled, maybe you've done Z-spheres. I know some people do that. I'm not a fan, but to each their own. So, you know, there's a million different ways to go through creating the basic shapes for your characters. And I know you do, I've seen your stuff before, Engine. I know you do some kind of form of that, but maybe taking it a step further and really really considering these primitive shapes a lot more will help you guys out. I would and I could obsess over these shapes for hours, trying to get them, you know, absolutely perfect before I moved on. And if I was doing something for production that was, you know, especially if it's something that I know is going to be reproduced multiple hundreds or thousands of times, if it's going to be, you know, a toy or a product or whatever, that's definitely a situation where you want something to be as good as it possibly can, as close to what you're trying to create as it possibly can. So you definitely do not want to rush forward in those situations. Might be able to get a little bit wider, on some of this. Now remember what I said, you want to avoid parallels in pretty much everything. That includes stuff like this. You know, even though it's just a blockout, you know, it really takes 2 seconds to add a little bit of visual interest here and just add some like tilt, twist, whatever you're gonna do. Not that hard, and you know, visually it's already more interesting that way. And we can do more to make that even more visually interesting, and we probably will. I'm gonna figure out this head shape a little bit more. Very rounded head, but as we rotate to the back, it sweeps up into this kind of point a little bit. which is why I've pinched that a little bit there. I'm just kind of playing around here, trying to figure it out. Let's see. And again, whatever method you use here, whether it be Dynamesh, manual retopology, manual creation with ZModeler, let's really get in here and focus on this stuff. These little, or I guess these big shapes, but little changes make a big difference here. Starting to lose the roundness from my silhouette there. Get rid of the awkwardness on my surface here real quick. A little bit smaller. Alright. And I guess we could do a quick little bun for the back of her head. I mentioned that might be quick and easy. Just a little polysphere back here. Just to help the character read a little bit better. The shape is essentially just a sphere that we want to taper out and up. Maybe be like a little bit of a diamondy shape. Try to keep that even. Something like that. Could maybe even, flatten it on one side if we wanted. I think I'll keep the roundness. So I think we want to make that. Whoop, come on back, pen. Make that a little bit bigger and down a little bit. That's what I'm thinking. Which is fine. Let's scale that up. It's really, I don't think this stuff is difficult. I think it's more time consuming than anything. It is difficult to, it's not difficult to, create what I am creating. It's not difficult to make a simple shape like this, to smooth out, use your move brush. All that stuff isn't difficult. They're very simple tools to use in ZBrush. What is difficult is just kind of developing your eye to see the shapes that you're trying to create in your concept. I was trying to pull up the reference. To see the shapes that you're trying to develop, and then, actually get your 3D object to look like that. That is the kind of difficult part here, which is why I highly recommend that you do this as much as you can. If you want to get better at creating characters, the early stuff is what's going to help you, I think, the most. If you want to get better at making stylized and appealing characters, these early stages are the most important. So when I see people that are like, hey, I used a base mesh to create this, what do you think of this? And it looks absolutely terrible. I'm like, well, hey, maybe next time try doing everything from scratch. Obviously it takes a lot more time, but your goal is to get a better end result. And to get that better end result, you know, maybe you could start with a better base mesh made by somebody else, or maybe you could just get better at making your own stuff. And you know, all the skills that you develop here in this earlier stage, developing your eye, getting better at creating these nice silhouette lines, thinking about all these fundamentals, thick to thin, straights versus curves, you know, all that stuff. It's going to help you later on as well when you're getting into those secondary forms and tertiary forms. It all feeds off of each other. Let's play around with our booty. Do we want more junk in the trunk? Or less junk in the trunk? Can I get away with more junk? We're getting pretty round here. I don't know how round we can go. And if I can, from the profile, taper this even more, I think that would be really cool. Now, get a nice curve going back here. You know, like I said, I wish I saved a version of this, you know, 20 or 30 minutes ago when I was talking about we could stop here and move forward, but why would you do that when you can get so much more value out of, you know, putting just a little bit more time into something like this? And in not very long, I think this is looking much better now than it was, you know, like I said, 20 minutes ago. You know, in another half hour, we'll have an even better looking blockout, an even better looking character. So, you know, I don't know how long you spend on making a full character or, you know, whatever project you're working on, but maybe instead of doing that, take all that time and put it into something like this. It might seem a little crazy, like a lot of time that you could be spending making something a little bit more polished, but I'm telling you, you can get some really nice results out of really simple, clean shapes. Actually, I have a great example. Over on ArtStation, someone recently posted a couple characters that they rigged. And I'll give a shout out to this person because they definitely deserve it. Where'd it go? It was just here on the front page. I might have it pulled up somewhere. I don't. Huh. I don't know where it went. I think here we go. These characters. Gabriel Salas? Go check them out. Go give Gabriel a follow if you don't already. But this is a perfect example of how far you can push something that is you know, extremely simple, extremely clean shapes. If you were to take something like this, you know, don't focus too much on the face. If you were to I'm not going to open up Photoshop. If you were to take something like this and, you know, really just get it into its most simple parts, you could do something just as clean, just as simple here in ZBrush by taking the time in that blockout phase. It will help you out a lot. You know, finishing and, you know, all the stuff that they've done here in the face is just another rendition, another example of, you know, doing the blockout and the clean shapes here and taking the time to really match your concept, but just in a little bit more of a smaller area, a little bit more of a controlled area. All right. So we've done a lot here. We can continue to push this, but I just want to make sure that we don't have any questions or anything. I've seen that one, really clean work. Yeah, it's great. Go give Gabriel Salas a follow if you don't already. He's doing some cool stuff. But yes, that is a perfect recent example. I think he just uploaded that just yesterday, maybe, of someone that really took their time in these early stages, figuring out these simple shapes and trying to make something that's really appealing. I say this all the time, and if you're an artist, you either realize this or you're going to realize it soon. If maybe you're a little bit new to some of this stuff, but people will always see the end result, but very few people will see the work that goes into something. So, you'll see that finished, beautiful character, right? These characters are beautiful, very well done, but you don't see the amount of work and time that went into something like this. And looking at these, I can tell that Gabriel spent a long time in these early stages figuring out how to make these really appealing. I mean, if you look at this arm, you can see some of this straights versus curves thing going on that I've been talking about. You can see a lot of these tapered shapes. This is also apparent coming down the leg, stuff in the body, some more tapering. Very apparent in the female character. If we look at this leg as a whole, this is one very large tapered shape. If you look at these, I'm not seeing really any parallels anywhere in these characters. If you look at the back sides of their arms, they got some exaggerated kind of curve going on there. There's just some really good stuff happening in here. And that's because, like I said, it took that long time figuring out these early stages. So if you want to make cool characters like Gabriel, take a word from the Follygon. I said I'd be dishing out homework as well, so your homework is to find a concept and spend at least 3 hours doing the blockout for a character. At least 3 hours. That's our homework assignment for today. And if you end up actually doing something like that, please come in here and post it in chat once you're finished. I think it'll really help you out a lot. And if you would even more so like, if you do something like that and you would like to get it critiqued, on Saturdays I do live critiques here on stream every Saturday. You can email me your stuff. I'll put it in chat. For the information. So you can email me your stuff at follygon@gmail.com and send me a Z tool, and I would be happy, more than happy, to take a look at it here on stream next Saturday. Last weekend we got some really cool stuff to look at. It was a lot of fun. And I think even for people that don't have something to critique right at this moment, if you just want to come and hang out, that's cool too. I find watching other people get their work critiqued and just seeing other people's critiques can often be very helpful by itself. Let's try getting a little bit more of a negative here. Starting to get a little bit too much of a swoop in there. So I just want to make sure that we're staying nice and clean here. Getting a nice round shape. Looking at those extreme angles. But obsessing over these shapes is, you know, it's what it's all about if you want to be a stylized character artist. Obsess over those big shapes. Really take your time with them. Another thing, if you are kind of doing this in the same method that I am, which is using multiple subtools to block out your character here, make sure that you're not getting like crazy break lines between your shapes. Make sure that things are, you know, flowing nicely together. Here I have a little bit more of a break line, right? There's more of a hit there in that area. And that's because this is supposed to be a sleeve, but it's a specific instance of me wanting that to happen a little bit more. Alright, let's just kind of do a general rotate around, see how some of this is looking. I think this shape is still bothering me. So I think we can do a little bit better here in making sure that this is uniformly rounded. Your current Moist Buns is currently trying out some stylized characters. Some parts still end up looking a little too fleshy or realistic. Like I said, if you want to get something on the Saturday critiques, or if you just want to post an image I can take a look at, I'll just say, if anybody's working on anything in chat today and they'd like to share it, I would love to check out what you guys are working on. It doesn't even have to be artistic. If you guys want to just share what you're working on or talk about it, I'd love to hear what kind of cool projects you guys are doing. Could be completely unrelated. But if you want me to take a look at something real quick, I'd be happy to do that as well. And we're definitely getting a lot better roundness here. A lot more uniform throughout the shape. I think we're a little bit too round up here towards the top, where this more starts to turn into a straight. So I think we could start to flatten that out, bring that shape in. Transition that a little bit better. I will be blending the front and back together into one singular mesh in a little bit. But let's make sure that this is hyper clean. Yeah, no problem. Just upload away. So I can realign some stuff. I've kind of stopped aligning too much here just because of the pose and everything else. I'm gonna do a lot of back and forth in that. I think I could make her a little bit wider in the lower body. I'm noticing that in general we're just misaligning some stuff here. But in terms of the upper body, I think we're a lot closer. So I'm starting to pull that out with my move brush. Making sure that we're just getting a nice clean shape here from all angles. Whoa, kind of scared me. Matthew, thank you for the raid. How's it going, everybody? Hope you're having a wonderful day. We're in the process of blocking out an old lady. What were you working on today, Matthew? focusing in on these really simple, clean shapes. I'm just noticing some points in my form here that are a little less clean than what I would want. They're just not retaining the basic shape here. I'm just trying to adjust that really quick. And if you're having trouble seeing your form, you know, switch materials, move your light around. There's a million different things that you can do to get an idea of your shapes and what's going on here. Moistbun says that, let's see, neck down looks too fleshy. Let's take a look. Ah, that's right. I did see you upload this. Yeah, I think, I don't think the neck down looks too fleshy. I think where you ran into a few problems here, here. This is a concept by Max Grecki. You guys should definitely go follow Max. He's an awesome artist. Here's his concept here. Stop Instagram. Let's find this image because Instagram tries to hide it from you. Isn't Instagram fun? Alright. So, very quick, I'm going to save both of these. And then we're going to open them in Photoshop. Photoshop has been freaking out on me though. Right click, open with Photoshop, and we'll take a look. So again, Max Grecki. That's what I mean by freaking out. Ah! Cannot complete request. What? Jesus, Photoshop. Calm down. Copy image. There. Jeez. Alright, so Max Grecki, G-R-E-C-K-E. Go give him a follow. Like I said, awesome artist, just got some really, really cool stuff. Very good for concepting in 3D, if you guys want to check out some of his work. And then just copy image here. Flip, horizontal. So I don't think your problem is that you're too fleshy, right? I think that your problem is that you just got a few areas here that don't exactly line up. So it doesn't exactly feel like the same character. So here in, and I could just kind of tell this just by looking at it. I've aligned this relatively quickly here, but I'll just kind of click and drag between the two. And I think there are, you know, a few larger areas that you could line up a little bit better if we kind of look down through the neck and how that's flying. I think you could exaggerate that that shape a little bit more. So just kind of flipping between the two down to your chest. I think you could bring that back, you know. Also thin out the head. But the thing, and then there's obviously just some other little misalignments here. I'm not going to sit here and point out every misalignment, but I think the stuff that you're kind of missing that is in Max Grecki's work and in a lot of stylized characters are these really sharp transitional hits. So what I would say for you, just kind of going up to the next level, if you want to take this stuff to the next level, and I'm sure you do, is to really try to focus in on these hard or sharp transitional points. Think a lot about what are called hits or breaks. A hit or a break is just a point in a surface where the form changes direction. So you're coming up the back, you have a straight up to there, another slight change in direction, and then a slight, curve up the neck, a little bit of a straight here, and then a curve up. So all these points, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are all breaks. Those are all hits. Some of them a little bit less so than others, but they're all points in the surface where it breaks. This is also apparent when you have a curve. So a few different curves here. Just something really quick, sure. So in something like this, the hit or the break would occur here. And something like this, it's where the surface starts to change. So you have, maybe a little bit more of a straight here. Sure, that's fine. Just do this quick. So we're coming up the straight, right? And then right about here, that surface starts to turn. And we have a little bit more of the surface starting to turn around here. Same up here, we got the same scenario. Surface turn, surface turn. So I would say try to focus on those. And obviously, I think just the slight misalignments that you have, I think you could push things a little bit further to try to get closer to the character that we see in the concept, make that feel a little bit closer, and I think you will be in a good place. But yeah, that would be my recommendation for you. Focus on those hits. Focus on those form transitional areas. Having some problems with building. Matthew's working on a gorilla. Very cool. You don't know what would be the best technique to build up the body from zero. Well, there's only a million ways to do everything, to sculpt everything. Maybe this is a great little stream for you right now, because we're kind of focusing on what it means to block out a character, taking the time to really focus in and create those simplistic shapes. So maybe this would be a good practice for you. I was kind of doling out some homework, so my homework assignment was, what was it? At least work on a blockout for 3 hours, and just blocking out a character, very simplistic shapes like what I'm doing here. So find a character concept, find something that you maybe would like to create at one point, and spend like at least 3 hours just blocking out the primary shapes. Do not create any form that does not affect the silhouette. So if you add something and it doesn't affect the shape of the silhouette, like that, remove it. It's not useful. Forgot you flipped it. It's no problem. It's just a quick click in Photoshop. I flip my stuff all the time too, because it's pretty tough to figure that stuff out. And flipping the canvas definitely helps. But yeah, I think just focusing on those hits and breaks, I think you'll kick its butt. Thanks for taking the time. Yeah, no problem, man. It's my pleasure. My pleasure. I sound like Chick-fil-A. Isn't that what they say? My pleasure. All the time. Now I'm hungry for chicken. Alright. So we could continue to push forward on this. Let's see how we're doing on time. I think we got plenty of time here to focus on a lot of different things. So we could continue doing that, or if anybody has any questions about anything specific, press F. Post in the chat, and we can maybe take a look at some of that stuff as well. Whoops. Alright, I'm going to work on just some of this shape a little bit more, and then maybe we can move on to something else. We'll see. And I'm not moving on because I'm done with this. I'm just, I think I've demonstrated enough of this process. And from here, it's just, continuing to push further and further on all these different shapes until I really feel like I would be comfortable moving forward. And if you're getting to a point where maybe you're stuck, not seeing exactly what you need to work on next, ask for help. Send it in here, post it in one of the ZBrush discords. I run the community ZBrush Discord. There's a link down below if you guys want to join that, somewhere in my social links. Get some help. You need help. We all need help. This stuff is, it's not easy, right? And the longer you look at something, the harder it becomes to continue to progress. And sometimes you just need to get your eyes off of it for a little bit, take a break. That's what I do a lot of the time. If I'm looking at something too long, work on something new. Or work on a different part of the character. Like if I was doing this blockout and I'm like, I don't know, something feels off about the body. So I'll just say, you know what, screw it, I'll just work on the face for a little bit. And I'll do that for a while, and then after doing that for maybe a half hour or even longer, I'll come back to the body and be like, oh, okay, I see what's wrong now. Just need a little rest for your eyes. Alright, so like I said, I could take the time to merge a lot of this together, but I think I'm just going to keep it in this really simplistic stage. Simple forms, nice and clean, nothing that's not adding to the silhouette in some way. And yeah, cool. Matthew got a board game that he's working on. Sounds like fun. I'm gonna save this out real quick. Very quickly we'll do a remesh here. Let me save this off very quickly. And how am I going to do this? Let me delete this real quick. I'm going to save the undo history of this really fast. Let me make sure I have this saved too. Very quick file save. Delete all, yes. Please don't crash. Oh my god. I would have been so mad if that crashed. Alright. The reason I'm saving the file, the ZBrush project with this, is because I want the undos with it, because I'm going to do something with it later. Top secret. Top secret, can't tell. Alright, real quick. Mannequin. Let me save this. Alright. Matthew has a Kickstarter project. Holy crap, a Kickstarter project. That's awesome, Matthew. For a board game, it sounds like. Very cool. Cultist Storm. It sounds kind of familiar. Cultist Storm. Very interesting. Look at that money just racking up. I've never heard of Cultist Storm, but I love me some board games. What kind of board game is this? Is it a Euro? It's more than an ordinary board game. I've never read any H.P. Lovecraft, but I know about Cthulhu and such. Cooperative game. I do like cooperative games. Interesting. Very cool. I will check that out more. What was it called? Cultist Storm. Very cool, man. Check out Cultist Storm, everybody. Looks like a nifty little board game. And I love me some board games. Looked like some really nice components. I think Matthew said that he was working on some of the 3D models. I'm not positive. Some of the minis. It has a soundtrack? What? I missed that. Yeah, no problem, Matthew. Like I said, everybody, feel free to share your projects. I'd love to check out what you guys are working on. Whether it's a Kickstarter project or, you know, you're just working on something in your free time. I don't care. I'd love to check them all out. But yes, I did save this, so that's great. Like I said, you know, pretty simple block out, really simple shapes. We spent a long time on trying to get something nice and clean. We definitely have some nice clean shapes here. We could spend more time pushing this further and further. But you know, at this stage, you know, I would be comfortable moving forward on this. I would also be comfortable spending another hour or two continuing the block out. Obviously doing some more stuff, probably with the hands and the feet, getting those more up to a level that we have here, and just continuing to work on some of the other shapes. And you're not going to get it right on your first try. I would say just go ahead and accept that fact. You're going to kind of get to this stage and then continue on from there. And you're probably going to realize that there's some stuff that needs to change a little bit later on. Stuff that maybe you didn't realize, or it's just something that, you know, is shaped a little bit differently than what you thought. Or it could be a million different things, but just go ahead and accept the fact. You're not going to get it perfect the first time. So yeah, earlier during our stream, we uploaded this to Shapeways to check to see if we could get it print ready. There are a few areas, as you can see, these little red points around the fur and some in the ears here, where it's just getting too thin, a little bit in the nose, along the rim of the hat in some places. So I just need to thicken these up, and then after I'm done thickening that up, I probably won't do another test. I'll just thicken up these areas and then get it ready for full color printing, which is a pretty fun process. We'll go through that here on stream. You have a gorilla that you're working on. You're using a human base mesh to start with, which is fine. I mean, probably going to destroy a lot of that anyway. But in this case, you need to start from 0. Okay, so you're not using the human base mesh. So I don't know what would be the best technique to build it up. Tried Z-spheres, Dynamesh, but you haven't really found a way. I recommend, you know, maybe try blocking out some really simple shapes like what I did here. Grab a sphere, block out a simple volume, and just continue from there. You'll end up with multiple subtools that you can end up merging later on. Merge visible, you can merge however many of these together that you want. You know, do whatever resolution Dynamesh or live Boolean, whatever you prefer to work with, and then just start combining some pieces of geometry and go from there. I would not do this for this character like the way I just did. Definitely not. But I think you get the idea. Cool. So let's fix those things on our puppy doge here for the 3D print. It's a problem for you always in a lot of projects. Yeah, I mean, that's why I recommend, you know, really taking the time during those early stages. It'll help you out a lot. So first thing I'm gonna do is make sure that we are thick enough along the points of fur down here. We're getting those little red dotted areas that we're saying, hey, too thin. This is gonna break off during printing. So that's no bueno, so we want to make these thicker. I'm using the move brush with back face masking and just ever so slightly thickening up a few of these. And this actually already passed the check, but like they said they would still print it based on the previous file I uploaded. I would prefer to fix a lot of this though. I know from experience that this little stuff is not something that you kind of would like to risk for printing. Very thin areas will often snap off. Labassi, welcome back. How are you doing? Yes, we're back on the pup. I was just mentioning how we uploaded the test to Shapeways, and now I'm working on making sure that we get rid of all those thin areas and get this ready for printing. It's already watertight from the previous stuff that I've already done here. This nose is actually a little bit tough here to work with. So it's just in that area. I could probably try making this a little bit more shallow. Oh, I see. I'm gonna just slightly soften this transition here. So I'm sculpting on the negative a little bit and just rounding that out where it gets really tight and pinched. And I think that should take care of the issue. And I'll do this for the rest of it too. Make sure we're not losing a ton of the form here, which I don't think we are. Doesn't look like it. So I think that'll work really well. Cool, cool, cool. A bit cold, oh no. Grab a blanket or a space heater. Actually, I don't know where my space heater went. I had it over there. Guess I moved it. At one of my jobs, I don't know if you guys know what a kotatsu is. Kotatsu. It's the little Japanese table where they put a blanket and like a space heater or I don't know, something under it, or a heated blanket to essentially make a nice cozy little thing that you can sit under, and you keep the blanket closed and then it traps all the heat inside, so you like tuck up under it and it's nice and warm. They're awesome, and I made one of these at my old job. Me and one other guy, his name was Brian, we went and got for our desks these big blankets, or they were just pieces of fabric. Actually, they were just really large pieces of fabrics. Mine had puppies all over it, his had kittens all over it. We were kind of the cool kids at work. And then we put space heaters under them and made little kotatsus. It was a lot of fun. That was one day's lunch break, but for like the rest of that winter, we were kind of the talk of the town. Everybody was pretty jealous. They wanted a slice of our kotatsu life. Yes, you too can make a kotatsu. It's not even that hard. Whoa, pupper. Here. I'm gonna put our little Santa pup up here. So the other area, it looked like around that brow a little bit. It's just getting a little bit tight where that hat is. So I think I'll just kind of move that up a little bit and fix that hat connection. I'll just fix a lot of stuff here actually. Need it full of puppies. Well, you don't want to stuff your puppies under there. You might melt them. Gets pretty warm. Oh my gosh, I cannot grab that geometry up there. Oh, I'm stupid. I had bag face masking on. That's actually my fault. Sorry for yelling at you, ZBrush. You were doing what you were supposed to. I was in the wrong. Most of the time it is operator error, I feel like. That's why when something stupid starts happening, I have to run through my checklist of what have I messed up recently that I need to fix. Oh man. The contact lens. It's like popping out almost. I think we're good. It's no fun. All right. That'll probably fix that issue. A little more red areas around the back of the ears. It's kind of the other area that I was worried about. Just getting a little too thin and tight back here. So to fix this, I'm actually just going to use my move backface masking and pull all of this in together. Should be fine in the front. And then after I do all this, we are going to run a high resolution Dynamesh and smooth out some of this. So this is all just to prepare it for printing in SLS full color sandstone. So now just a little bit of a smooth through here. Hopefully this will take care of most of the problem area. So you need to worry about areas where your mesh gets really tight, right? Because it can get really thin. But that also applies to places where it gets tight in the negative, because it's the same exact problem with 3D printing. So if we look at the negative mesh here, you still got this really thin area that will have to be 3D printed. It's just kind of the inverse problem, where instead of additive, it is subtractive. Really tight areas are not great for 3D printing. Really thin pieces of geometry are also not great for 3D printing. That's why we were getting those errors around the little points of fur like that. Alright. I think maybe just a little bit more softening in some of these areas for that translation. And I think we'll be cool. I don't think I'm missing anything else. We'll double check though. Let's see, nose, ears, and the fur. Cool. And I got that one on the eyebrow. Awesome, so that will, or that should do it. The next step would be to hollow this out, which is always a lot of fun. Here, I'm gonna put Grandma up here as well. All right, so how do we hollow something like this out? Oh, let me check real quick to make sure I'm not getting an error under the tongue. I was really worried about this area. We're not, okay. Nothing else here, cool. So to hollow this out, if you guys saw the process for, wrong browser, sorry. For this character, I went through the process of hollowing this out. It's gonna be pretty much the same thing. So the way we're gonna do that is start by merging everything together with the merge visible button here. So we got everything merged. We're gonna turn off our poly paint, and then we will run a Dynamesh on this. It doesn't need to be high resolution for something like this, and honestly, it's better if it's a little bit lower resolution. So from here, I'm going to append that doggo to my project, and then delete the old one because I don't need a bunch of stuff clogging up my file. So here is the low resolution Dynamesh, and now I'm gonna take this and smooth out any of those areas where it gets really thin, or there's just, you know, some really sharp transitional areas, and just get rid of all those points. And just clean this up, smooth it all out. And it looks like we're kind of destroying a lot of stuff, but essentially what we're creating here is the negative shape, the negative buck that we will be subtracting from the inside of our dog to hollow him out and save on monies, because the price for printing this currently, what was it? It's like $35-ish, like right around 35 for uncolored sandstone. So that means that the color is going to be even more. Whoops, back to model. And for the plastic material, it's even more expensive. And keep in mind that this is only 2.5 inches tall. This is pretty tiny. So we want to drop that cost down quite a bit, and hollowing this out and getting a lot less material will be one of the key ways that we do that. So after we've cleaned this up a little bit, what I want to do next is figure out how much I need to hollow out my negative so that I can subtract it properly and get a proper thickness. So to do that, I'm gonna take, here, we'll just take everything, turn everything on. I'm gonna delete this extra fur real quick, because it's old. I'm gonna use the hat, actually, as the reference for this, to figure this out. So here's my hat, and I'm gonna look at the silhouette and draw my transpose line. You can also create geometry of a specific distance to do this. I've done this many times though, so I know pretty much exactly how much I'm gonna want to deflate this by. So this is about 3 millimeters or 0.12 inches. It's right around there. And I know from experience working with this stuff that if I deflate this at this scale, roughly 100 units, it will deflate to about that 3 millimeter mark. Or I'm sorry, 5 millimeter mark. I believe 0.12 inches is 5 millimeters. So we've deflated that, and you're going to notice that we're getting a lot of these weird little, well, pieces of geometry that have kind of flipped in on themselves. And that's not good. We really don't want that. So to avoid that, that's why I started smoothing and cleaning up a lot of these hard ridges, because they often cause that to happen. And to get rid of that even a little bit more, we'll just kind of go through and very roughly smooth and clean up this stuff even more here. So the ears are going to be a real problem area. These are actually too thin to flip. So I'm just going to delete the ears almost entirely. So those are going to be the biggest problem area of all. I might have to get rid of some of the hat up there for sure. So about up to that point. So anything beyond this is pretty much useless. I won't be able to hollow any of that out, which is totally fine. Honestly, it could use the extra material so that it could support the string that it's going to hang by even more. And then let's just lower the res on this even more and keep cleaning this up. Another benefit of smoothing and lowering the resolution on this is that it gets a little bit smaller every time, so you're just going to give yourself even a little bit more wiggle room. So this is what our negative will end up looking like, something close to this. I'm just going through, cleaning it up really quick. And I'll turn everything back on in just a moment here. So here's our dog, and then inside is this piece of geometry that we are going to subtract. And that's going to remove quite a bit of volume from the inside of this. It's going to be very helpful in saving us on cost here. So to finalize that, we need to create an escape hole for all of this material. And the easiest way to do that is probably just create a cylinder for all of that to flow out of here at the bottom. Any reason I don't do mesh mixer? I like working in ZBrush. I've never used mesh mixer, and I've never used thin in mesh mixer. If it's, you know, that much better at getting that perfect result, I would do it. But also the other main reason is that I can retain all my polypaint data through this process. I don't know if it's going to retain polypaint if I use some kind of auto thinning algorithm. But if it does, that would be nice. Any reason you don't just do this in mesh? I see, not thin. I thought that was like a function or something. Yeah, polypaint. So you want to retain all that color information. If you were to thin it out, so if you had UVs with a texture and then you hollowed it out, it would mess up your geometry because it would change it, so it would mess up your UVs, so the texture map wouldn't work. The only way that I can think of is maybe thinning it out in Mesh Mixer and then projecting it back on in ZBrush. But that messes up with decimation. There's a very, very specific reason why I do it this way and not just the hollowing out. I'm talking about the entire process here. The reason why I keep everything separated as individual tools and everything else here, I'll show you guys as we continue on. Did I? Make sure cool. I got some extra geometry here, it looks like. I'm gonna delete it. So the way that we're going to do this, I've shown off this process a couple times on stream before, but we're going to be decimating each piece of geometry separately, so that when we live Boolean those together, it will give us a nice clean separation line between the different polypaint. And then we'll get a nice clean print, much like all of these. Oh my god, there's so many. Wow, I can't actually even hold them all. Here, I'm gonna break one of these if I drop it. Here's Chewbacca Alpaca. Wow, fun. Here's Spyro Lapras guy. Holy crap. Here's a cactus friend. Wow, there's a ton of these. I got even more. Mayor Hey Hey, Sonic and Yoshi infused into some kind of cute butt monstrosity. Yeah. Tracer fused with an Inkling. Ooh. And everything else that I'm holding. But yes, this is the process that I've done for all of these. Oh no, please don't be broken. So, you know, I've kind of done this a few times, and it works really well. Ugh. It doesn't take very long if I'm not... Oh no, one of his little hairs broke off. That's okay. That's not that big of a deal. It's a pretty small little chip too. I'm fine with that. But yeah, you know, I've done this more than a few times, and it doesn't take that long, especially if I'm not streaming and talking through the whole process. I can do it in, like, depending on how complicated the model is, you know, definitely under half an hour. But yeah, let's see. Let's go through the escape hole portion, which is this cylinder here. And this will save on even more material. Alright, so that doesn't need to be, you know, like a perfect shape. This is all just being subtracted from the top mesh. I'm gonna align that, I think, a little bit better. Probably scale it in a little bit. Cool. I'm just gonna merge these together. Very quick, rough Dynamesh. Don't even care how messy it is. I just know that each time I do this, it's getting a little bit thinner, which is perfect. So now, there we go. There is our subtractive piece of geometry. So now if I turn this on negative and turn this on live Boolean, I don't have everything active here. So I'll have to combine all this stuff to show you that. Very quickly, merge visible, append, there we go. So there's some stuff going on here because I don't have the geometry merged together yet, but there is an idea of what our hollowed out little ornament will look like. I'll probably change this color to be maybe red on the inside just so it matches the collar and flows really well, or just black just so it's not quite as noticeable. We'll figure it out once we get to that point. When you print, it's on a form too, so no color. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah. 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 We're kind of... There's not too much left to do for this process, really. The rest of these steps are very repetitive. So once you get one down, you can just do it to the rest of the stuff, and you're good to go. The next part of the process is just going to be decimating, making sure that we can get this under 64 megabytes and under 1 million polygons to be able to upload to Shapeways to get a full color SLS sandstone print, we're going to need to get that under that limit. And that'll be pretty tough to do with the geometry that we have now. So let's start decimating. I'll go ahead and do the first one to the head because this is the highest poly, and it'll be the one that drops our total poly count down the most. Let me quick save really fast. And I'm gonna save this file so that I can save a new one that's just called decimated, so I have the two different ones if I need to come back to this for any reason. Alright, so to decimate, you're going to go into your Z plugin menu under Decimation Master and click on the Pre-Process Current button, and that will process your currently active or selected subtool. You can pre-process all of your subtools at once. I recommend not doing that because it takes a really long time to calculate, and oftentimes it's a lot faster to just do this one at a time. Plus you might not need to decimate everything, so it's kind of a waste of time to go through and calculate the things that you're not going to decimate. So let's just do the head here first. You can often get away with a pretty large decimation. We'll see what we can get out of the default, which is 20%. I think we'll be fine at 20. So once that's done calculating, which it is now, you can decimate. And after decimating, you can't really tell anything has changed in your form, but if we zoom in here and look at our polyframe data, you can see all of the tessellated polygons here. Essentially what Decimation Master does, or what decimation does in general, is it tries to lower the poly count based on the parameters that you give it. I told it to decrease it by 20%, or to 20% of its original value, which is now around 500,000 polys. So I probably need to drop that even a bit lower. And then what decimation does is it tries to lower that poly count and only put polygons where it thinks it needs to retain the form. So it's going to be there's going to be a lot more polygons. You can see how it gets more dense as it wraps around here into the corner of the mouth, because it needs more polygons to retain that shape than it might need to retain a shape of like this flat part of the nose here. So we'll lower the poly count even more. Let's try that, which is right around 300,000 or so. And let's do this to the rest of these. Like I said, it's pretty repetitive at this point. So after you're done merging all this together, you just run your Boolean operation with your subtraction and all your other pieces of geometry, and then you have your finished 3D model ready to go. As long as you're getting under 1,000,000 polys and 64 megabytes, you'll be solid. Albert, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? As well as everybody else. Hope you're having a great day. Let's continue setting this up for printing. We're almost finished here. A lot of these are pretty low poly, so I think some of these are okay. This can definitely be decreased by quite a bit. Whoops, we need to process that really quick. So anything that's, pretty small, not that big of a shape, I'll decimate it down to as low as I can get it to retain that shape. But for something like this hat, the only reason I would want to retain this poly count a little bit higher is the way that Polypaint works. Remember, we're trying to export this and keep the color from the Polypaint. The way that Polypaint works is it's vertex color. So what that means is because it's not on each polygon face, it's on the vertex, so that means that color can kind of blend between two polygonal faces. So if I were to, just as an example, decimate this down to 1%, and then Boolean these together, make a Boolean mesh, you can see that we're getting some blending in the Polypaint color because the Polypaint is on these vertices that are connected, and it's blending into the hat. So we're getting some white up there. The alternative is that it would be going the other way and blending onto the base of the hat. But it shouldn't matter too much. I don't think our poly count is so high that it's going to cause that many issues. I think it'll be pretty easy to lower this to where we need it. So anywhere where you have a drastic color change, typically from like white to red or white to black or pretty much white to anything or black to anything, are the areas where you'll see the most problems. Let's try like 15% of this nose. Try to lower this. So we're right around 2 million now, which is great. I think a few more decimations and we'll be good. Ah, that's weird. And once I actually Boolean all these together, so this is saying that the total points are around 2.2 million or so, roughly that many polygons. But what's going to happen when we live Boolean is that any geometry that's intersecting here is actually going to remove those polygons. So it's actually going to be a lot smaller, hopefully a lot smaller. If I click on Make Boolean Mesh, we'll see what that actual poly count looks like. And then hopefully we can upload this and check out what the 3D print's gonna look like. Uh-oh. Oh, I know what the problem is. So that's my bad. So the way live Boolean works is it pays attention to your start groups. So let me delete these start groups and try that one more time. So what the grouping mechanism is in your subtool palette, I often use it to just organize my subtools, and I had done that earlier and forgot that I had that set up. So here we go. Here he is. He's under 1 million polys. He's like 3/4 so that's awesome. I would just do a quick check on this to make sure that we're not getting any colors blending anywhere that's too crazy. Remember that this is only going to be about 2 inches tall. And then the next thing I would do is make sure that the inside of this is looking good. Make sure that our negative is set up. So it looks like there's a hole somewhere. That's what this tells me. Or there's some kind of just floating piece maybe. I'm hoping it's more so just a floating piece of geometry, and that this isn't connected anywhere to the outside. So let me run an auto groups and select this, inverse the selection. Okay, so what's happening here, it's a little hard to explain. Maybe I can find out where the hole is, and then I can show you. Okay, so here there are a few pieces that are connecting to the outside. And these are essentially creating tunnels. So the way that oh man, this is hard to explain. It's a complicated thing. So let's do this. So if you have two spheres, right? You have one sphere and another sphere, and if I were to Boolean these and combine them, where they are touching, the geometry on the inside would cease to exist. It would just be this outer shell of where those pieces of geometry were connecting. But if I had a situation where I have a hole or some kind of stupid backface masking, some kind of situation where something like this, and I'm making the hole really big just to illustrate the point, all of that is still going to exist on the inside. Now let's say you have something like this. We still have a hole to the outside, so everything here on the inside is going to still exist after that Boolean. And I can make this as small as I want, but as long as there is a tiny little gap here, all of that floating geometry on the inside will still exist, and you'll end up with something like this on the inside. So that is the result of that. So the way to fix that, I could just manually close the holes here on this, but I would prefer to go back to the original and fix it here and find out where all those little tiny holes are. So I can already see a few of these where these are happening. All I have to do is use my move brush with backface masking, close off these little areas, and we should be golden. Had a meeting and couldn't pop in till now. No worries, HUD boy. How'd your meeting go? We are wrapping up our cute little doggy here. I just gotta finish closing holes in a few of these areas, and then it will be all set up for printing. I don't think there's too many of these. Just like a couple areas. And I think I got most of them already. Just make sure. Alright, let's try another Boolean and see if we get the same issue. Go over to our new Booleaned mesh. And if it's still there, it doesn't mean that it's still a problem. It just means I might still be able to delete it, but it looks like there is one point here. What's going on? All right. Very thin hole. Like I said, it doesn't have to be big to cause the problem. All right. So I think that's the last one. Let's make sure that the other side didn't have any. All right. That should do it. Luckily, Live Boolean is actually surprisingly fast. Live Boolean's awesome. Just the fact that you can pre-viz everything by itself is amazing, but the fact that you can do it so quick and just run the operation is amazing. So we still have that piece in the middle, but if I run an auto groups operation here, it should manually select that, and then I can just delete that because it's just floating in the middle. So now, let's go through here and just slice up our boy. Make sure that there are no more floaters. Make sure he's all watertight. It looks like he's nice and watertight. So we're pretty much ready to print this. We could maybe try to get some more resolution here. He's right around 700,000 polys or so. I don't know if it's really necessary. We are maybe getting a little bit more bleeding up there in the color than I would like between the fur. I don't think that'll appear in the print. Let's see. I could try, instead of doing, I think I did 15%. Let me see. So what was I at here? 700 or so. So I could probably get like 300,000 more polys out of something like this. So let's see what this puts this at really quick. I think that should be good. That's probably perfect. one more Boolean. Check out our pupper. See if he's still looking cute, and then we can export him. And it'll be the same process for me uploading this. He'll just have all his polypaint on him. For exporting, it's actually a little bit different, so I'll show you guys that in just a moment, once that's done. Sweet, so we're still under 1 million polys, so this will upload just fine. So to get rid of the floater here in the middle, you'll obviously have some floaters probably as well if you're using live Boolean. What you should do is go down into polygroups, run an auto groups operation. What auto groups does is any geometry that is separate in individual object, so a floater in this case, it will polygroup that as its own piece. So this is a purple polygroup, and if I click it and select it, it will hide anything else. So if I select it and inverse my selection, what's going on? Oh, I'm dumb. So I do know what happened here. So that's what's supposed to happen. But when you decimate something, it decimates it based off of what you pre-processed earlier. So that means that the holes that I quickly got rid of ended up coming back, which is my bad. So very quickly I will go through this and just very quickly close off those holes and make sure that I get the one tiny hole that was causing us some issues. I think it was right here, or I think it was maybe this one. Just want to make sure that I'm filling all those holes in. That's right. ZBrush, fill your holes. And I'll just make sure that all these are a little bit more solid here, just to make sure I'm not getting any of those floaters. Definitely a hole here. So remember, live Boolean, it'll get rid of any of those areas where the geometry is touching. So anything on the inside of that will be deleted. Alright, last live Boolean, I promise. Fingers crossed. That should probably do it. And now we can set this up for export. So again, auto groups, just to make sure that that's the only mesh. There's the floater, delete the floater. Here is our finished puppy doge. He's still under 1 million polys. He looks good to me. The only thing left to do here before we export him, of course, is to hollow him out. So I guess technically not the last live Boolean, but it was the last live Boolean for combining stuff. The next live Boolean is to hollow out this piece of geometry here. If you didn't see the process for this, it just essentially involved combining all of the doggo head and then deflating it to the thickness that we wanted, which is around roughly like 5 millimeters. That'll just make sure that I could do 3 millimeters in some areas, because you can get up to 3 millimeters for supported walls, or wait, what is it? I think I had that backwards. 3 millimeters is the minimum for, and now I'm confused, unsupported walls. 3 millimeters is basically the most thin you can go for anything that would be supported, which just means if there's something under it holding it up, you can probably go down to about 3 millimeters. If it's something that's hanging off the edge, like this hat, see how it's wrapping around? It's unsupported by anything other than what's connecting it wrapping around here. You couldn't go thinner than probably around 5. You'd be kind of pushing your luck. So let's subtract this. I guess I just need to decide on the color for the infill here. I could make it match the color. I could just make it black. I could make it white, and definitely not white. What do you guys think? Red or black? Here. Red or black for the infill. Black just kind of, you know, hides it all in shadow, which I prefer. I kind of like blending the same color though. I've done black a few times, and I've done... I think I'll just do red. Now, when I subtract that infill, it will actually make the poly count go up. It's a little bit weird, you know, you're subtracting stuff, so you feel like the poly count should go down, right? But you're actually adding polygons, because what's happening here is when I subtract that geometry, it's adding that whole inner area in there. Even though it is a negative cavity, all of this surface in here is going to have to have, you know, polygons. It's the shape that's supporting it. So to make sure that I don't go over my polygon count, I will actually have to decimate my infill piece as well. And you can go extremely low on something like this, because it does not matter. It's never going to be seen. It's all on the inside. I'm just putting this down to like 5%. That's perfectly fine. Make sure that color is filled in there, because this is all done with poly paint. And then all I have to do is click on Make Boolean Mesh. This is set to negative on the infill, so that's why that is prevising as a subtraction, and that should go through the entire process here in our finished one, and now it's all actual geometry. Awesome. So I will append that to this file here, just because I like to keep everything in the same file, so that when I save this, I have the print ready Z tool and some of the old files. So I'm actually going to do that right now. I'll call this the print ready file. And the only thing left for us to do is export this. But to export this, I think by... I'm trying to remember what Shapeways does here. I think it does Z up, right? Yes. So I want to rotate this. I don't have to do this because I can set this up later, and this actually doesn't affect anything other than the pre-visualization, but I still like to do this. So I just rotated this 90 degrees so that the Z-axis is now up instead of what is normally the Y-axis in ZBrush. All right, cool. Yeah, let's save this puppy out. Literally puppy. Before you save it out though, you do want to make sure that it is the only subtool in your tool. Because the way we're exporting this, it will try to export everything. So I just very quickly copy and pasted my tool and then clicked on delete other to delete everything except for this. So in your Z plugin menu, there is the 3D print hub. I'm going to set this to inches, and then I'm just going to click on update size ratios because I have this preset to sizes. The one on the left here is what I want because this is in inches. So that'll set up these settings here. That's all good. And the last thing that I need to do is just click on export to VRML, VRML file. This is a file that can be uploaded to Shapeways and many other 3D printing on-demand services, or if you happen to have an SLS machine yourself, which would be crazy, but exporting this as a VRML. So let me do that really fast here. Weston. I'm just going to call it Weston. That'll go through exporting that. It's normally pretty quick. And if you remember, so VRML, they can export polypaint. That's why we're exporting as a VRML. If you remember my constraints, we're under 1 million polys and under 64 megabytes. I have a feeling this is larger than 64 megabytes. It is, let's see, it is 115 megabytes. So to fix that, you can really just cut down on the file size just by zipping it up. It's a single file, but this is the only way you're going to be able to upload it. So 7-zip, just add it to an archive, sure, that's fine. We'll go through compressing that really quick, and this will probably get down under 64 megs. It'll probably be, I don't know, maybe 20-ish. It should be well within range to upload. 20 megabytes, just like I said, crazy. All right, cool. So let's go back to Shapeways here. Find that upload button. Choose a file, set it to inches, and choose a file to upload. And we want to upload the zip file, and that'll take a little bit. It's going to go through the same process that happened here. It's going to grab the file. Once it's finished uploading, calculate it for all of their materials. So it'll probably take, up to an hour, maybe even longer. I've had it take up to 3 hours before for this kind of stuff. But I'll let that finish uploading, and we can look at a few other things while we're waiting on that. And then after it's done, we'll be able to previs what the print will look like. It takes a little bit to upload though, like I said. So that's it. That's the whole process. I think it's relatively simple. It just takes a little bit of practice to do it a few times, and once you do it like once or twice, you'll get the whole process down. But yeah, if you guys are looking for maybe a way to make some ornaments for some family or friends for Christmas, I think it's a really, really cool little process. That's what I'm hoping to do with this. I'm going to hang maybe some ribbon up here from the hat, something like that. Have them hang from a Christmas tree. It'll be great. So we'll check on that print once that finishes uploading. And in the meantime, for our last little bit here, I am going to continue working on our grandma. And if you guys have any additional questions about the whole printing process or anything else I'm working on, I would love to answer what I can. 1 second here. Alright, cool. So if we've kind of been jumping back and forth on the doggy and this little character blockout that I did, just because I was waiting on an upload earlier. So while waiting for the uploads, I've been working on doing a character blockout of this little grandma here. Concept is by Luigi Laricello. I can't remember their last name. It's like Laricello, I think, something like that. Or just Google Hello Luigi and you will find all of his work. Sneeman, what's going on? How you doing? Let's blockaroonie and do some more stuff here. I said that I would like to maybe do some more stuff with the hands, maybe some more stuff with the shape of the feet. The shape of the feet feel like they could be more rounded on top. And to get that feeling, I'm just going to insert a simple edge loop in here. And if you guys weren't here before when I was working on this, the entire point of working on this little blockout, the entire point of the demonstration, is just to go through the process and really focus in on creating these nice, clean, simple shapes that represent the character as best as we can in 3D. I think it's a really good. I think it's just really good practice to do something like this. Not only that, but it's often the way that I block out my characters when I'm starting to create my stylized characters or literally anything. I do the same thing with realistic characters as well. Figuring out proportions in the beginning, all that stuff is really tough, but keeping it low poly and as simple as possible, as I mentioned, is extremely helpful for this stuff. So if you've never done anything like this before, and you kind of just rush ahead maybe with Dynamesh or something like that, you can absolutely use Dynamesh for this process, but maybe try just staying low res a little bit longer. I was being cruel and dishing out homework earlier. As a saying, if you guys want to get better at making stylized characters, try doing something like this, and try to spend at least 3 hours just blocking out a character. I haven't even spent 3 hours blocking out this character. I have spent 3 hours and 20 minutes streaming today, but we've been jumping back and forth between these. So probably about, half that time, maybe an hour and a half on this. I'm not really sure how we split up that time exactly. But yeah, if I spent another hour on this, I could push this even further, start combining a few things, start, probably getting these hands up to a little bit more of a finished level, even though we're trying to keep them really simple. We do want to keep everything as simple as we can here. Let's maybe try a quick little Dynamesh on our hands and try cleaning these up. So I just used a few cubes and just kind of combined them really quick. It's not anything too difficult. I don't think anything that I'm doing is extremely difficult from a technical standpoint. But I think the difficult nature of it is just working on your artistic eye and being able to represent certain shapes in 3D based off of what you see in 2D. At least it's something that I think is extremely difficult. I mean, that's all of 3D modeling, right? In a nutshell. Representing forms in 3D. A little bit more form change here. And just probably trim this up even more. Try to get something more dynamic as well in terms of the shape of our palm and fingers, everything else. And give me less polygons. Trying to make this a lot cleaner. And also let's check up on our upload, see how that's going. Looks like it's getting there. Looks like it's finished uploading, it's just processing now. They're actually a lot faster than they used to be. The uploads used to, like I said, take like 3 hours. But it was pretty much all I had at the time. They're, yeah, I like Shapeways a lot. I think they're kind of considered one of the industry standards in terms of print-on-demand stuff. But if you're doing stuff for product development or anything like that, I recommend finding somebody online that just has an SLA printer or something like that. Yeah, or if you're trying to RP and FDM, I think it's probably, most people RP and SLA, but depending on what the product is, of course. But it's going to be a lot cheaper just finding somebody to work with, rather than going through something like Shapeways and then ordering a print for $50, revising on that print, getting another one for $50. I mean, that stuff racks up really fast. You'd be better off just buying your own printer at that point. Shapeways is awesome. If you're printing FDM, why not just grab an Ender? Yeah, exactly. If you're just doing FDM, you could absolutely grab a really cheap FDM machine, or like an actual kit and just build your own. I actually think if people are getting into 3D printing, this kind of isn't the case too much anymore, just because 3D printers are a lot better than they used to be. But I highly encourage people to get a kit and just put together their own first FDM machine. It's not as hard as you think, but what is great about it is that by the time you build it, if anything ever breaks in the future or something goes wrong, you're gonna have a lot more information and experience to figure that out. Go a lot easier, a lot quicker for you. Caitlin says that she uses an FDM for working out the kinks in printing before printing on the form too. Awesome, yeah. That's a great way to do it for test printing if you're trying to figure out thickness issues or something like that, where something might fail. Very cool, I like it. The Prusa machines I can also recommend. I'm not sure about the i3MK3. I've never used that one. Prusa machines, the oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking on the name. This is finished though. We'll look at this in just a moment. Why did that still say rotated down? That's weird. Multi-maker, not multi-maker. Make shaper. Make shaper, or is that the material? Make shaper, guys, if you do want FDM material, holy crap, these guys' prices are the best that I've ever found. They have a variety of materials, variety of filaments. There we go, PLA. I think most FDMs are 175. I think most people at least print in 175. But you can get some really cheap PLA filament from MakeShaper, and it's really good material. I like it a lot. I've never had any problems with it. It's really good stuff. But I cannot remember the name of that print brand that starts with the letter M that I'm thinking of. The Fusion machines are also really good. They're, from what I've seen, the newer ones are a lot more expensive than they used to be. You used to be able to get a really, really good FDM printer for like $500 or $600. You can get a pretty decent one still for like $300 or so. MakerBot. Thank you. These are what I used to use. The MakerBot 2 Extended. They're just like a little bit bigger, a little bit taller. Ultimaker, not MakerBot, Ultimaker. Yes, Ultimaker. Google knew what I wanted. Yes, the Ultimaker. I've never seen an Ultimaker 3 though. These are just really reliable machines. They're pretty expensive though, it looks like. MakerBot. I don't think I've ever used a MakerBot. MakerBots are some of the cheaper machines, if I remember correctly. They look sexy. I actually take that back. At my school, we had a couple MakerBots, and it was probably more so the technician that was working with it, but they always got really crappy prints off of them, and I'm sure it was more so operator error than anything else. But hey, look at that price. 20 bucks, hell yeah, woo! So we were able to shave off $15 off of that by hollowing it out and doing a few more things with the processing there. So that's awesome. I was able to get that down to, what was it, 2053? Awesome. I cannot wait to order some prints of that. I think that'll be really cool. I'll delete that in a little bit. CR10S, 75% replaced parts and upgraded at this point. Nice. Yeah, it got to the point where we were just 3D printing parts on other machines to fix certain parts on other machines. Like, the machines were just printing parts to help fix each other. You don't like the MakerBots, it's just the only printer manufacturer I knew started with an M. Like I said, I haven't had, great experience with the MakerBot either. I haven't had the opportunity to actually interact with the machine too much though. I've only received a single print on a MakerBot, and it did fail. And it shouldn't have failed for what it was. What am I doing here with this hand? Probably just changing the direction of this thumb quite a bit. I don't know why I'm gonna make this more relaxed. So remember, simple shapes, blockout, we're really focused on that. Even if it's just a hand, that's, you know, good enough. What we really want is proportions. We really want the main shapes here. So I might split up the fingers here. Right now, you know, it's really not necessary in my opinion. We will make the hand larger though. And make the fingers larger as well. Yes, Ultimaker does not start with an M, but I believe their logo, I thought it had an M in it. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember. We got there eventually. Ender 3, really good price for what you get. I'll have to check them out. Yeah, there's always some new printer. I can make a recommendation for where you shouldn't buy a printer, ever. Unless, of course, I ever get my refund. They stopped responding to my emails though, so I'm gonna guess that's a no. So that's like $600 that I'll never get back. Yay. Alright, let's work on the transition between the arm and the hand as well. Often to do stuff like this, what I will do is take a duplicate of one of the objects that I want to merge together, and then merge them with kind of like a proxy piece is a good way to think of it. And the reason you merge something like this together is so that you can dynamesh it and then work on this transition. And after you work on this transition for a little bit, you can just delete the excess geometry, and then you have a little bit of a cleaner transition between these two pieces. I'll just slightly clean this up. GearBest, I'm not familiar with GearBest. Is that a company that scammed a bunch of people or something? It was not GearBest. So now that I've kind of combined that stuff there and got a really clean transition, I can just delete what I don't need. And have a nice clean flow, you know? Nice clean flow, you know? Probably delete some of these edge loops. Here. May of 2017 is when this printer was fully funded. And isn't there like a timeline or something you can see on here? On Kickstarter? Someone help me out. How do I do that? Let's see. This is who I bought a 3D printer from, or I kickstarted a printer from. Ah, okay. So, I think this, so the Bean Kickstarter, right? May 2017. That's when the Kickstarter was. So that's when I ended up supporting or backing this project. And we can look through all these different steps, and look, January 2018. Printers start shipping. Hold on, let's check the date. Weird. It's December. And they still have not shipped out all their printers. They have started shipping in December. They've started shipping, but they're still not, many people have still not received their printers. I have not received a printer, and around January, or no, I think it was around March 2018, I sent them an email and said, hey, I don't want the 3D printer anymore, can you guys just send me a refund? And they said, yes, send us another email when we start shipping. So I sent them an email, and then I said, what would be the status on a Kudo 3D? Never buy anything from Kudo 3D. That's my recommendation. I'm not even going to open their website. Because it gives me PTSD. So I asked them, and they said, depending on the company's financial situation. And that's all they said. It was one sentence. Like, that was their reply. I was like, so I asked, 8 months ago, and you guys said, sure, well, when we start shipping, just tell us again that you don't want the printer, and we'll give you a refund instead. And that's what I just did. And they waited, of course, to reply until they started getting all the shipping preparations ready. So I wasn't even sent a printer. It might be somewhere out in the stratosphere. I don't know. Never got a printer. I'm not going to get a printer, and I'm probably not going to get a refund at this point either. So I started emailing them and asking them for more information, and then they just started ignoring me, and they will not reply to any email that I send. So I was pretty annoyed. So there was a week there where I just sent them an email every single day, like, hey, what's the status? What's the update? And then, they just weren't replying. So that was a lot of fun. Kudo 3D, guys. Don't buy a printer from Kudo 3D. Your calendar is wrong. It's 1989. I think your calendar's wrong. Ouch, sorry to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I will never back a project on Kickstarter ever again. Most Kickstarter items you back always come months late. Yeah, I mean, I would expect that. But, a year late, and then they just say no refund. They tell you they'll give you a refund. And then they don't send you the object that you ordered that was $600, and then you don't get the object or the refund. It's like, let me just take this knife and stick it in and then twist it a little bit. Yeah, it's like, okay, kick me while I'm down, please. Can you do a chargeback on a thing that I bought 2 years ago, almost? No, that's not how that works. At least I don't think that's how that works. They've had the money for a long time now. Yeah, it is. It's terrible customer service, right? I couldn't agree more. Don't give up before you try. I've already gone through the stages of grief. I have accepted that I will never get anything at this point. I did try. Lost money on 2 Kickstarter projects as well. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm never ever doing anything with Kickstarter ever again. Not after that. I thought that there was something in place on Kickstarter that changed to make it so that the people were responsible. Like there was legal responsibility to supply the rewards that you purchase, that you back. Sorry, I gotta use the correct vernacular here. Because you're not buying the object, you're just giving them money and saying, maybe give me a product later, like maybe give me the reward later. Like it's so stupid. Trying to pull this sleeve out so it's not blending into the shirt there. Probably do a lot more with that hand. I don't know if I will per se. Let's see. MakerBot's coming out with a new 3D printer on the 11th this month. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't follow printer releases like I used to. I used to be really interested in that stuff. Now I don't really care. I'll just find out, what's a cheap and good bang for your buck like SLA machine and buy one of those eventually. Not anytime soon, though. Not after I spent money on a printer that I will never get. I would have really enjoyed having an SLS machine because then I would have been able to print a lot of stuff that I've worked on and a lot of stuff that I continue working on here. Whether it be a mannequin or a little puppy head or something, like this guy. Like I would love, like by now, I should have had an SLA printer and I could have printed this guy on my own printer. And that would have been, I would have loved to have this on my desk. I can get this through Shapeways and I was kind of planning on doing it for Christmas because I think it would be cool. But we shall see. I actually plan on printing some stuff as Christmas gifts for family and friends. Like this guy over here, he's supposed to be an ornament. I think there's too much volume here, and that's what's causing this awkward shape here with the body, and then it's also causing issues with the arm. So I'm gonna pull this in a lot. I actually like that a lot more. So like I said earlier, you can experiment and stop whenever you want, but I recommend spending that little extra time during this blockout phase. Try to spend, like I recommended, if you've never done something like this before, try to spend like 3 hours or so doing something like this. Something, a small or a simple character, not small, but a simple character, and really focus on those large shapes. Just focus on trying to get that stylized appeal here into 3D. That's how we ended up with with this monstrosity. You guys saw this guy. The big buff boy, and then I added the doggy head to him. I still have, just for those that did not see it earlier, I'll import it real quick if my voice doesn't croak. Yeah, this was the other mannequin that I did. I did not sculpt this on stream, but I was using this as an example for a lot of the principles that we were talking about during this process. Whoops. I feel like I could go even wider on the head. I'm just trying to round this out a little bit more. I think I just whistled when I spoke there. It's finally happening. I'm getting the old man voice from, what's it called? Family Guy. Sweet. How's he do it? He's got like a high-pitched voice. Sweet, sweet, sweet Jesus. Something like that. I'll have to work on it. Let's actually put some legumes down here. The reason why I inserted those on the bottom is because the bottom was a perfect flat, so that I wouldn't have any issues here with the direction. Not that I really need to put legs in, because they're kind of pretty much covered up, but we'll do it anyway. Whoops. Hairy Hobbit feetsies. This is a possibility. A scary possibility that I would like to avoid. Let's see. So you gotta be a little careful here when you're trying to line stuff up with pose and everything else. I'm gonna make the head quite a bit larger and mess with that shape a little more. Maybe with something else here. The hair. Let's see. Let's go into T-pose mesh. I can't use symmetry right now in T-pose because it's actually gonna get screwed up because of this hand. Or actually, no it won't. Not with the local. Yeah, I think we're good. Never mind. Forget everything I just said. So hopefully this really pushes home for you guys how long you can kind of stay in a stage like this and really try to figure out this stuff even more when you're trying to work on these simple and clean shapes. I could spend all day working on a single mannequin and be perfectly content, really just trying to figure out as much as I can. I highly recommend as well, if you're starting on a new character, whatever it may be, like go into Photoshop or something else and just do a quick draw over of a lot of the shapes. Helps you figure out the volumes. It'll remind you later, even if you just do a quick draw over the arm, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, it was a lot straighter on the outside and the inside had like a little bit more of that sweep up through there. So I'll try to get that in 3D. So it'll help you with a lot of stuff like that. I think I could maybe get a little bit more of a transition here. Alright, cool. Let's go back to T-pose, or our subtools, sorry. And then I'm just going to very quickly mirror our hand over with Subtool Master mirror. So my hand is pretty high poly. I'll be cleaning that up later if I continue working on this base mesh. I kind of doubt that I will though. Well, actually no, I take that back. There is a reason I do want to clean this up, which I will talk about later. Top secret. You have a dream for hairy hobbit feats? Alright guys, I think that's going to be good for today on our mannequin and also our doggy, since we did a lot on our pup and we were able to get it print ready and everything else. So thanks for coming and hanging out. I'm actually going to be streaming in, what, 2.5 hours I think now on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel. If you guys don't follow Pixelogic, they're the creators of the software that I'm using. So head on over to Twitch and or head on over to ZBrush Live. That's me, 3 p.m. PST or 6 p.m. EST, which is my time zone. But they are, I think there's probably a link here. I don't know if nobody's streaming right now. Actually, nobody's streaming all day. But Lug Infinity, thank you for the follow, appreciate it. Let me see here. Or just Pixelogic on Twitch. I don't know if I can, oh, there, I can't click that. So yes, here's their link, Twitch TV/Pixelogic. Oh, they're hosting me. That was a little Inception-y. I think they're hosting, or no, that was mine. Never mind. Or no, wait, that was theirs. Never mind, forget I said anything. They were hosting me. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm going to be streaming on their channel in a few hours. I am ready for Super Smash Brothers. My body is Reggie. Have you considered closing the hat tip so it can be used as a key ring? I have not, nor would I want this the full color sandstone material used as a key ring, because it's a little brittle, and if you were to have that banging up against keys, it would probably rub a lot of the material away over time. It's not super fragile, it's just a little brittle, so if you dropped it, it might break a piece off, like I did that to my little Angry Bird here earlier in the stream. I chipped off a little bit of one of his hair strands, which is fine, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, not as a keyring, more as an ornament. But yeah, we've done a lot today. Thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you've enjoyed seeing a lot of new processes today. The only thing I'll shout out at the end here again is, of course, my Gumroad, gumroad.com/Follygon. There's a link down below with courses for absolute beginners, intermediate people, more advanced stuff as well. Check it out. I would greatly appreciate it. I also do some stuff with mentorships. There's some base meshes, materials that I use, brushes that I use, some curve brushes that I recently uploaded, all sorts of goodies. I would love it if you checked it out. And that is going to be all for today. Again, I'll be streaming on the Pixelogic channel in a few hours at 6 p.m. EST. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come and hang out. We're going to be doing a new mannequin, another mannequin. We did Granny here today. I don't know where she went. There she is. We did Granny here today, and we'll be doing something a little bit different later tonight. But I'm going to find somebody to shoot a raid here really quick. There's never any sculptors online. But it looks like there's a person painting minis, which is very cool. I'm very much into it. I don't know about you guys. I've never painted a mini. I think it would be a lot of fun. I'd love to paint a mini. I don't have a ton of minis, though. I have a few from some board games, but that's about it. All right. I will see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your day if you're not going to be around to hang out on the Pixelogic stream. I stream every day at noon EST except for Sunday, so maybe come and hang out on one of those times, and I will see you guys later. Bye now.